In Congress, July 4th, 1776. The unanimous declaration of the 13 colonies of the United States. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which compel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights governments are instituted among men, deriving their power from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them seems most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are most disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same abject evidence to a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now necessary, which constrains them to alter their former system of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants everywhere. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses completely for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time for such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these United States for purpose of obstructing the laws for neutralization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising the conditions of the new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their office and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new officials and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independence of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledgeable by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us, in many cases, of the benefit of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in neighboring provinces, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries, so as to render it at once an example and fit instruction for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with powers to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abducted government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, dissolution, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidency and scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hand. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions we have petitioned for redress of the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and have conjured them by title of our common kindred to dissolve these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connection and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and of congeniality. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America and General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the rule for rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and authority of the good people of these colonies, suddenly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states that have full power of levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. For the support of the Declaration, with firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Signed by Burton Wilnett, Liam Hall, George Walton, Samuel Chase, William Paca, Thomas Stone, Charles Carroll of Colton, Caesar Rodney, George Reed, Thomas McKean, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Robert Treat Payne, Elbridge Gary, William Hooper, Joseph Howe, John Penn, George Weef, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, Carlton Baxton, William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, Lewis Morris, Stephen Hopkins, William Ellery, John Hancock, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkins, John Hart, Abraham Clark, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, Oliver Wilcott, Matthew Fortin, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Claimer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, George Walsh, Joshua Bartlett, and William Wimple. On July 4th, we celebrate the proclamation of this Declaration of Independence, which is recognized as the birthday of the United States. And so, here on Nightly Old Time Radio Shows, we present a special marathon of the historical radio series American Trail, and I hope you enjoy it. Have a good and blessed 4th of July.
The American Trail. The American Trail. Blazed in blood. Defended in blood. Chapter 6. The Golden Ocean.
Seems to me I can still see the covered wagons. The way they rolled along the Cumberland Road, heading west. Only when me and Kathy crossed into Illinois, we went alone. Me driving the 2 horses and Kathy sitting beside me on our wagon. Just the 2 of us. Me and Kathy used to have a piece of land in the Virginia Valley. When we decided to move west, I saddled a horse, went around saying goodbye to my neighbors. There was Cyrus McCormick. His folks had a big farm in the valley, big enough so they had their own blacksmith shops. That was where Cyrus spent most of his time, bending pieces of iron into all kinds of queer shapes. You still fooling around with that contraption, Cyrus?
Hey, you'll see. Sit down, Jeff. Use that barrel.
I reckon I'm not staying, Cyrus.
Well, there's cider in the pitcher. Help yourself.
Well, got time for that, anyhow.
Jeff, I think I just about got this machine figured out.
That'll never do a man's work, even if you do get it to run.
It'll do the work of 20 men in a quarter of the time. Jeff, there's a need for this machine.
I don't see no need for it.
Oh, listen. You know when my folks first came to this country? 1743, going on 90 years ago.
Well, what about it?
We're still plowing and reaping just the way they did when they first came here.
Oh, what's wrong with that?
I'll tell you something else. We're still plowing and reaping the way people did 4,000 years ago.
There can't be much wrong with it.
Jeff, fellas like you make me tired. Farming ought to be made much easier and quicker.
A man who's worth his salt doesn't want things made easier for him.
Jeff, when I've got this machinery for working, I wouldn't sell you one if you begged me for it.
Cyrus, you'd have to travel a long way to sell me one. Me and Kathy, we're leaving here.
Leaving? Where are you going?
Out west. Virginia's fine, Cyrus, but it ain't big enough for me. A few days later, me and Kathy set off. I can't even remember all the places we went. Ohio, Indiana, some states that only had a handful of people. No roads, hardly anything you could call a town. Just every once in a while, a little cluster of cabins. On all that land. Then we moved even further west, into Illinois.
Nothing but plains. Plains. When are we going to see some people? I'll forget what people look like.
And then one night, we drove into a big covered wagon camp, maybe a couple of hundred settlers. From New England, from Europe. Right nice bunch.
I'm Fred Tucker, wagon master of this train.
Well, howdy, Fred. I'm Jeff Baker.
Hi.
My wife, Kathy.
Oh, ma'am, it's a pleasure.
Oh, I could cry. I'm so happy to see people again.
Well, I bet you could, ma'am.
You people staying here or going on?
We don't have to go any further. Just beyond that ridge yonder. No further than that. Here. You see where I'm pointing?
I see.
Some of us rode over there this morning. Man, you should see the soil. Jeff, we can grow enough food in that country to feed all 13 million people in the United States.
Reckon this is where me and my wife are going to stay, then. It was the middle of summer when we moved in on the Great Plains. We staked out land, built log cabins, shelters for the horses and cattle. But by that time, winter set in. It was a hard winter, a long one. Snow drifting across the plains, 14, sometimes 20 foot deep. Sound of cold wind sweeping down from the Continental Divide, whipping across the Great Plains.
Neighbors living 5 miles away. We can't even get to see them.
It's lonesome, all right. But wait till spring. We'll see everybody then.
Snow, Jeff. That snow.
It's going to melt one of these days. It'll soak into that good soil. And then it came. The spring. The real hot weather hadn't set in yet. It was just right for hard work. The two horses had grown fat. They wanted to work. They wanted to be hitched up to the plow. They wanted to feel the soil under their feet.
Hey! Pull that plow there! Hey up there! Get up there! Get rid of that fat! Get up there!
Jeff, rest a while. Rest a while.
This is man's work. This is real man's work.
You'll kill yourself.
Hey up there! Get up! Get up there! Get up! Hey up there! Go on there! Hey up! Hey!
And it was summer. Hot like a desert. The wheat came up. We thought the sun had burned it up, but it was good wheat, strong. The soil was full of moisture from that winter snow. Kathy, you ever see a sight like this before?
Oh, it's beautiful, Jeff. Real beautiful.
You could ride all through this country, days and days. It's all you'd see. Miles and miles of waving corn, wheat,
It's like looking at a golden ocean.
far as you can see. It all belongs to us.
But, Jeff, you'll have to let me help you with the harvest.
Sure could use some help. I'll hate to see you working in the fields, Kathy.
Well, you can't do it alone. You just couldn't do it, Jeff.
You have to know to the day when to start reaping. It's a man's work, all right. Bending over all day, bending and swinging that scythe. Kathy following me, bundling up the wheat as I cut it. Oh, look at the color of this wheat, Kathy. The size of it.
Jeff, I can't stand the sun. Jeff,
Kathy.
Jeff, I feel like I'm going to faint.
I got hold of you.
I feel so dizzy from the sun.
I got hold of you. I'm going to carry you back to the cabin.
Oh, I want to help you. I ought to help you.
No, Kathy. Won't let you work in the field no more. Never again. It's too much for you. This is too much. When Kathy felt a little better, I went back to the field. Out there, just me alone, in the middle of all that wheat. With a job of reaping to do before something happened, and I lost my harvest. I'll never forget that day. First sound of thunder. Me looking up at the sky, seeing it get dark. And then darker until it was near black. Black and orange and everything looking a queer yellow color. Sick feeling at the pit of my stomach. The rain coming, the big rain. Me standing there in my field, staring up at the sky, crazy and yelling something. No, give me a week. Just 1 week. Let me cut my harvest. Don't ruin it for me. Just give me a little more time. Solid sheet of water. Like somebody had opened up the sky. I just stood there. Seemed like my wheat wasn't there no more. All flattened out.
Oh, Jeff.
It's all gone. The harvest. Gone. Ruined. If only we'd have a little more time. If only I could have had that wheat cut before it happened. The hot sun came out next morning, but I had no harvest left. Me and Kathy, we just stood outside the cabin, looking.
I was so happy here. I was content. Now I'm scared again. Jeff, I want to leave.
We could get through winter, maybe next year.
Next year it'll be something else.
Hey, Kathy, we need some help. If we'd only get it.
Where are you going to get anybody to help you?
Yeah, you're right. I know you're right, Kathy. Only we're still pretty young.
Well, we won't be much longer. We'll be old before our time. Jeff, let's go back. Anywhere. I don't care where. Just so we don't stay here. It's too big for us here. It's too much for one man.
We started getting ready to leave. Me and Kathy, a lot more of the settlers. Then one morning, Fred Tucker rode over.
Jeff, Kathy, saddle up and come with me. Come on. There's a fella down by the river. A fella from Virginia Valley. He's got something to show us.
Now, listen, the lot of you. I'm no crazy man. I tell you, you don't have to quit your land. You don't have to go back, and you don't need to hire more help.
It was him, Cyrus McCormick. A few years older now, not so much of a dreamer as when we last saw him, but real businesslike, standing there beside the river. One hand on his reaper machine and talking to us. That machine was the queerest-looking contraption any of us had ever set eyes on.
Here it is, my friends, the McCormick Reaper. Takes only one man and one horse to run it, and it does the work of 20 men in half the time.
Cyrus, you can't prove a thing around here. We ain't got no wheat to cut.
I'm not here to prove anything, Jeff. I'm here to take orders. I've just come from Ohio and Indiana. It was harvest time. I demonstrated this same machine to a lot of farmers back there. They saw how it worked.
You sold your machines to them, Mr. McCormick?
I took orders, promised delivery in time for next year's harvest.
Cyrus, how would we pay for one, even if we stayed on here?
Well, you buy on credit, Kathy. You pay later. It'll be you I'll sell one to, Kathy. I told Jeff years ago I wouldn't sell him one.
Well, Cyrus, that ain't no way to remember an old friend. Look, I was just telling Kathy it don't make sense for a man to break his back when he can get a machine to do his work for him. Don't make no sense at all.
Cyrus, we'll buy one.
Kathy, wait till next year. Wait till you see us plowing this land, then waiting for harvest time. Wait till you see me sitting up there in that seat like I was a king, driving my own reaper machine.
Like he was a king, driving his own reaper machine. As far as he could see, the yellow wheat waving in the sun, and him, king of it all, the golden ocean. Yes, there on the Great Plains, the McCormick reaper met the need of the day, brought to farmers an end to drudgery. A century and a quarter of progress has passed since then. Today, tractors replace horses. Machines plow the soil, reap the harvest, bind it, thresh the wheat. The Great Plains of America have become the breadbasket of the free world. Out of this very heart of America thunder freight cars laden with grain. Enough for our domestic needs, enough for foreign trade, as American wheat flows to the four corners of the earth. The product of the golden ocean. This has been the 6th chapter in the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Next week, another story to make you proud of this great country of ours as we follow the American Trail. The American Trail. The American Trail. Blazed in blood, defended in blood. Chapter 2. The Northwest Ordinance. (1787). The Northwest Territory from New York State to the Great Lakes was a vast, almost unexplored wilderness. Reliable maps and data about the Indian tribes were needed. Congress sent out scouts and surveyors to bring this information back. One of these men was Kit Bradley, an Army scout and Indian fighter. In the early part of 1787, Kit arrived in Philadelphia to turn in his report. It was a cold, bleak evening. Kit rode his horse slowly down a narrow side street, looking for a tavern where he could stable his horse and eat a warm meal. Suddenly, something or someone huddled in a dark doorway. He dismounted and slowly walked over to the doorway. It was a girl, he saw. A girl, shivering, frightened, and exhausted.
Are you all right, ma'am?
Let me alone.
Now, don't be scared. I don't mean no harm.
Who are you? They sent you to find me.
Nobody sent me to find nobody. Now, here, you're trembling. You must be nearly frozen.
Please let me alone.
Ma'am, I reckon you could do with a good meal. It's real cozy in this tavern.
Yes. I feel warmer now.
You had enough to eat?
Oh, yes.
I reckon we can sit a while here in front of the fire.
Yes. It's nice here.
Oh, you look real pretty now. With your blonde curls and your blue eyes. Some color in your face.
You've been very kind.
Anna. Anna, you said your name was.
Anna Ostold.
You're running away from servitude, aren't you?
But...
No, don't look scared.
No. No, I'm not afraid now.
You didn't like the family you were bonded to?
They treated me like a slave. I was a slave.
You had a roof over your head.
A roof is not enough. I will not be treated like a piece of dirt. Am I less than anyone else? Does God think less of me that I should be a slave?
Seems to be a lot of people are asking that question these days.
Why do you look at me so?
You ever hear of the Scioto Valley?
No.
It's in Ohio. My folks settled there. They're farmers. They came from Massachusetts.
I was born on a farm in the old country.
Anna,
Yes?
I have a mind to quit what I'm doing and settle out there in Ohio.
Yes?
I could get a few acres of land. It's good land, good soil. I'd build me a log cabin on it. Start a farm.
Yes.
It's big country, Anna. Sometimes it tries to scare you. But a man and his wife, if they had the gumption, could make out.
So there it was, the dream of an American frontiersman to take a wife and build a home. But first there was a job to finish. Kit had come to Philadelphia to see one Major General St. Clair.
Here's my report, General.
Yes, I'm anxious to look it over. Sit down, Bradley.
Thank you, sir.
You're looking fit enough.
Well, I reckon I still got my scalp.
Indians pretty hostile.
I'll allow they're not so friendly.
Oh, what are you planning to do while you're here in the East?
Oh, I reckon I got something to attend to.
Oh, good. Otherwise, you'd find it pretty dull here.
Dull?
Bradley, I've never heard so much nobility of purpose in all my born days.
How's that, General?
They're trying to push a bill through Congress. The Northwest Ordinance, they call it. It'll give the settlers in the frontier country the right to local self-government.
The right to local self-government.
That crackpot, what's his name, Jefferson? He wrote it.
Local self-government. That'd really be something.
They were strange words in 1787, but they sounded good to Kit Bradley. Then, in July that same year, the Northwest Ordinance was passed. The frontier was officially thrown open to the settlers. In short time, the covered wagons started to roll through Pittsburgh and on into the wilderness. Among the pioneers was Kit Bradley and his wife, Anna.
What do you think of America now, Anna?
It's so big. It frightens me.
You'll get used to it.
Kit, I'm free.
Oh, you're not so free. You're my wife.
Oh, no one can hold me in bondage. The new law says so. It says there can be no slaves in this part of the country. I'm as good as anyone else.
I reckon you are.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's wonderful.
Kit built his log cabin a few miles out of Chillicothe settlement, and from miles around, his neighbors rode over to help him. Men and women, they all pitched in. More and more settlers came. And one day, a visitor dropped in to see Kit, Dr. Edward Tiffin.
Well, Kit, we're a fair-sized community now, well above 5,000 male voters. You recall what that means?
Why, I reckon it means we're about ready to govern ourselves.
According to the Northwest Ordinance, we're entitled to elect our own legislature.
That's something, Doctor. That's really something.
Well, now, Kip, some of our friends have asked me to go and see the new governor. And, let him know we're about ready for self-government. Now, is that all right with you?
And when do you figure to leave?
Day after tomorrow.
You going alone?
Oh, I don't mind the trip.
I reckon I'll go along. I can get some woman to come and stay with Anna, and she can look after the farm for a few days. A governor, you said. Who is he?
General St. Clair.
St. Clair?
So you see, Governor, we all feel that we've reached the stage
Well,
where...
Dr. Tiffin, I don't think we need to waste valuable time on this sort of discussion.
No, I think you're mistaken.
I reckon you are too, Governor.
Tiffin, let me ask a question.
Please do.
Well, don't you think you're just making fools of these simple-minded farmers with all this nonsense about self-government?
Well, they're entitled to it.
You don't pretend to think these ignorant settlers have sense enough to vote intelligently, do you?
The law says they may vote any way they choose, intelligently or otherwise.
Oh, what kind of idiotic talk is that?
Governor, we think a lot of Dr. Tiffin here. I reckon he's our spokesman.
I'm all the spokesman you people need, and all you're going to get. I don't want to hear anything more about this Northwest Ordinance. What do you say to that, Dr. Tiffin?
Only this, Governor. I don't think you're bigger than the law of the land.
It was a bad beginning, and things became worse. Denied the cooperation of the man who had been sent to help them, the settlers were suddenly faced by open hostility from the Indians. Kit Bradley knew that for the moment, politics must be put aside. Survival was now all that mattered. President George Washington ordered Governor St. Clair to take the field against the Indians. St. Clair and his troops were driven back in defeat. American prestige died. The Indians, intoxicated by victory, went on the rampage. One day, just before dawn, Kit Bradley, about to start work on his farm, saw a horseman approaching.
Bradley. Kit Bradley. Get your wife and kid and get to the settlement. The Indians are coming this way.
Are you afraid, Anna?
Yes, for my baby.
All right, come. We're going to leave.
Settlers died by the score. Their homes went up in flames. Their dreams in nightmares of smoke.
Don't cry. Don't cry.
Our home. Our little home. It's gone.
Well, I reckon we'll just build another one. Now, don't you cry.
But Congress did not abandon Kit Bradley and those like him. It appointed General Anthony Wayne to lead a strong expeditionary force against the Indians. Mad Anthony Wayne, they called him. And at Timber Falls, he met the Indians and defeated them. American prestige was restored. Peace came to the frontier country. Kit Bradley and the other settlers rebuilt their homes, and under the leadership of Dr. Edward Tiffin, resumed their struggle for self-government. At Cincinnati, they convened before Governor St. Clair.
Dr. Tiffin is recognized.
May it please Your Excellency to recognize this legislative body and to consider our petition for self-government.
I have not the slightest intention of recognizing any such twaddle.
We insist
Insist.
on our constitutional rights.
The convention is closed.
Governor, who do you think you are, a king?
I'll put you in jail, Bradley.
Kit Bradley, Dr. Tiffin, and the rest were not to be stopped by threats.
Anna, we're going to hold our next meeting right here in Chillicothe. And if Governor St. Clair wants to stay away, we'll make out just fine.
Why is he so against us?
Men like him don't think people like us should have any power, I reckon.
The settlers held their next convention at Chillicothe, and Governor St. Clair made a point of being there.
Your Excellency.
Silence, Dr. Tiffin.
This is no time for silence.
We'll be heard, Governor.
Not by me, you won't.
We'll go to someone else.
I'm still the governor of this territory.
Then we'll see somebody in Congress.
I'll tell you what I think of Congress. Order, order, order.
The devil won't keep us quiet, Governor.
I've had enough of this.
I reckon so have we. I reckon we'll take this to the president.
And I'll tell you what I think of him.
Time passed. One day, Kit took Anna and their child east. A very simple man who had served his country so well, and who himself had written the Northwest Ordinance, was now President of the United States. Thomas Jefferson was glad to see this young couple from the frontier.
Kit, Anna, be proud you took part in a great moment of history, that you helped establish a new pattern of life for the West.
We are proud, Mr. President.
We must never allow the will of the majority of our people to be frustrated by one man or by a minority. No man is ever greater than the law of the land.
I reckon someone thought he was.
Well, Governor St. Clair is being removed from office.
Removed?
For insubordination. Now, let me offer you some tea.
They came from the 13 states and from lands across the sea to build a new nation. And out of the frontier country, they formed new states after the plan set up in the Northwest Ordinance. As a new century began, and the American frontier was rolled back. This has been the second chapter of the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Next week, another story to make you proud of this great country of ours as we follow the American Trail. American Trail. The American Trail. Blazed in blood. Defended in blood. Chapter 9. The California Gold Rush.
I'll be in San Francisco, and then I'll look around. And when I see the gold lumps there, I'll pick 'em off the ground. I'll scrape the mountains clean, my boys, I'll drain the rivers dry. A pocket full of rocks bring home, so brothers, don't you cry. Oh, California, that's the land for me. I'm a-going to Sacramento with a washtub on my knee.
Pretty good, Dad, pretty good. Hi, folks. This is Lenny Crosby. Guess you know my dad.
We'll move over a bit there, will you, son? I give the old man a little room, huh?
Why, you bet. Say, Dad, I kind of went along with that song.
Well, boy, that was number one. Did you know that? Number one on the hit parade back in 1849.
The days of the gold rush?
Yeah. Long about the time California was ready to latch on to the U.S.
Ah, they were the real rugged days.
Yes, they were, Lynn, so they were. But California's come a long, long way since then.
Yeah, all our big cities, farmlands, industries.
More to it than that, too, boy. I like to fool around with the idea that California is sort of a digest of American history.
I guess it is, Dad. So much happened in such a short time.
Well, look here. By the time California was ready to spring along with the rest of the U.S., it had a lot of catching up to do.
Sure caught up, though.
All right, then. That's what I mean. Now, look, you know what I'd like to do here? I got a yarn about a young fellow your age who was around during the gold rush days. You want me to unwrap the story, boy?
Go ahead.
As I recall, his name was Barney. Barney, yeah, Barney Brooks. This is how he told his story.
I'll never forget it. That day we dropped anchor in San Francisco Bay. It was so foggy we couldn't even see the land. Then sailors started deserting the ship. The captain up on the poop deck yelling at them as they rowed away.
Come back, you swabs! Come aboard, you mutinous dogs! I'll log every man, Jack! I'll lambaste the hide dog of your swag!
They never came back. They were after gold. Just about a year before that, gold was discovered in the Sacramento Valley on Captain Sutter's land. My dad and I heard about it back in Boston. Everybody went wild. Everybody wanted to rush right out to California and get rich. One night my dad said,
Barney, old fellow, we're going out west. We'll get enough gold to buy some land and some cattle.
A couple of days later he left, went overland. I came out by way of Panama with some other people. One of them was a young school teacher, Miss Taylor, Virginia Taylor, a friend of mine. It seemed years before we got to San Francisco. But at last the fog cleared. Miss Taylor and I stood on deck looking at the coast and waiting for my dad to come for us.
Barbaric-looking country.
It's wild, all right. Those mountains. Look at them.
They must be the Sierra Nevada.
Where Captain Fremont explored. My dad came aboard. He looked grand. Mexican sombrero, red shirt, big, strong sunburn.
Killing valuable time here, waiting for this boat.
Oh, I thought we'd never get here, Tom.
So did I.
Dad, did you find any gold? Have you been to the gold fields?
Yes. Give me the bags. Let's get ashore.
I'd never seen my dad like that before. So jumpy. We went ashore. What a place. Crowds. Every language in the world. Hundreds of tents pitched all over the hills. No real streets. Just mud paths, shacks, huts. A few regular houses. One was called the Parker House. Next door to a gambling place, the El Dorado. Dad had found us rooms at the Fremont Family Hotel. I was unpacking in his room when he came in with Miss Taylor.
There's a fella here, Brannon, Sam Brannon. You ought to see him, Virginia. He's got pull in this town.
Will he help me with
He'll be glad to see you. Sam's civic-minded. Now, you tell him you want to build a school out here, and he won't be able to do enough for you.
Then I'll certainly see him.
Oh, here. I want to show you something. Barney, quit what you're doing.
What is it, Dad?
Here, in this drawer. Now, wait a minute. Here, catch, Barney.
Oh! The bag of gold, Dad, it's gold!
Open it, have a look. Yeah, here's another bag.
Tom, that's gold.
More than $40,000, and I'm going back for more.
Oh, boy!
Going back for more. Tom, I thought you said...
Thought what?
You were going to buy land and cattle.
I want my share of the gold, Virginia.
Dad, I'm going with you to the gold fields.
No, son, I'm sorry.
Oh, please, Dad, please let me.
I said no. How many more times? I'm sorry, son. I didn't mean to shout.
That's all right, Dad. Next morning, Miss Taylor went to see Sam Brannon. He was a newspaper publisher. She took me with her. Mr. Brannon was sure a fiery character.
Ma'am, they've sure gone haywire in this town. They all think they're going to get rich. Maybe a few will, and the rest will have their hearts broken. I've seen men destroying themselves up in the gold fields.
I suppose so.
Now, this town was built for 800 people, ma'am. In 6 months, we've seen 10,000 people pour into it. We've got a criminal population here. Thugs, hooligans, scum of the earth.
It's to be expected.
But not condoned. And I'm for hanging or shooting every known criminal. When a man gets to be a menace to decent people, get rid of him, I say. Kill him, like a mad dog.
If the law prescribes it.
The law?
Isn't there any?
There will be. We're organizing a vigilance committee. Now, ma'am, for better or for worse, California's soon going to be a state. With all this gold here, it's going to be mighty important country. But the decent folk here have got to make it a fit place to live in.
I want to do my share, Mr. Brannon. I want to help establish a school system.
Proud of you, ma'am. Good and proud of you. Proud to see a decent American girl come out here. Only it's no place for you yet.
I'm here now.
You got any folks out here?
No, nor in the East. I have no one but myself.
Proud of you. Little lady, we'll build your school. We'll build a church. But first, the scum's got to be cleaned out. Now, ma'am, I hate criminals, and I hate hooligans. I hate 'em worse than poison. Don't you, Sonny?
Yes, sir.
Tom Brooks's boy, huh?
You know my dad?
I know him.
He fought Indians in the Black Hawk War, sir.
I know he did, son.
He'd be good for your vigilance committee.
Yes, well, we could sure use a man like him.
When we got back to the Fremont Hotel, Dad was just about going out. He had a strange look. I had a feeling something had happened.
I was out. They knew I was out. And they came here.
Who? What is it, Tom?
Bandits. Big Jack Fisher's gang. Came here in broad daylight. Took everything in sight. They got my gold.
The gold!
You stay here till I come back, son.
Dad, go to Mr. Brannon and the vigilance committee.
Tom, please wait.
This is the Gold Coast, Virginia. Every man makes his own rules. Every man's his own judge and jury.
It's not true. It's not true.
Dad went out. At first, I couldn't think. It was the look on Dad's face. Miss Taylor, he's going to look for those men.
Yes, I'm going to Sam Brannon for help. You stay here, Barney. Oh, what's come over your father? He mustn't. He can't take the law into his own hands. Barney, stay there.
I stood there for a minute. Then I ran out. I kept running and running until I saw my dad and caught up with him. Dad!
Go back, son.
Dad, I'm scared.
Go back, I told you.
Please, Dad, please!
I said go back!
The first time Dad ever hit me, I just stood there. I saw him going to the El Dorado. I started running again. Barney, come back here. I heard Miss Taylor calling. I looked back once. She was with Sam Brannon and some other men. But I kept running until I got to the El Dorado. When I first got to the door, men and women were gambling, and the place was in an awful uproar. Then suddenly everybody was awful still. All you could hear was a lot of breathing. And my dad, walking slowly towards another man who stood near a table. It was like watching a tiger. Dad didn't even draw his gun. And the bandit seemed like he was frozen.
I've come for my gold. Fisher, I said I've come for my gold. Fisher, I'm counting 3.
I don't know why I did it. I saw the bandit's hand move towards his gun. I didn't want my dad to get shot, and I ran between them, just as the bandit fired.
Barney!
I heard the shots. I felt a hot pain in one shoulder. Then there was another voice.
Don't move, anybody. I'm Sam Brannon. This is the Vigilance Committee. We're getting some law and order around this town.
Barney, speak to me.
Get a doctor, quick.
Next thing I remember, I was in my bed. Miss Taylor was standing there with my dad and Sam Brannon.
He's all right, Tom.
Son,
Did you get your gold back, Dad?
I don't want it, Barney. I don't want to see it. I just want you to get well.
I'm all right.
All the things I ever taught you. All the things that matter. I was turning my back on them. Respect for law and order. Barney, your dad's ashamed.
Dad, are you going to join Mr. Brannon's Vigilance Committee?
He already has, Barney.
Gee. It was grand watching San Francisco grow into a big city and my dad helping. Hundreds of ships sailing in from all over the world. More and more settlers coming, building homes, schools, churches. California getting to be a state. And me feeling California was just as much as my home as Boston had been. Because it was all part of the United States now.
Hi, folks. This is Crosby again.
That was quite a story, Dan.
All right, Lindsay, but don't go thinking it's all wrapped up.
No, I guess it isn't.
It's your story now, boy.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Yours and all the other kids across the country. You're the ones who'll be carrying the ball pretty soon, this law and order deal. You know, a few people in this country and around the world are trying to break it up. And don't you guys let them do it. It'll be up to you to see that these United States keep moving along in the good old American way.
Don't worry, Dan.
It's important stuff, my fine young friend.
I know it, Dad. We all know it. All of us.
Fine. Now you're on the ball, boy.
Our thanks to Bing Crosby and his son, Lindsay. This has been the 9th chapter in the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the veterans of foreign wars. Next week, another story to make you proud of this great country of ours as we follow the American Trail. American Trail. American Trail. Blazed in blood. Defended in blood. Chapter 12. The Blue Yonder. The night of December 16th, 1903.
You, Orville Wright, lying there in bed, still awake. Midnight. Bitter cold outside the cabin. Wind driving the sand across the Kitty Hawk dunes. What are you thinking of? Lilienthal? Otto Lilienthal? A German named Lilienthal who wanted to fly. Crashed in his glider. Dead 7 years. You had better luck, Orville Wright. You and your brother Wilbur.
More than 1,000 glider flights last year. And we're still alive.
You learned a lot. How to control your glider against every kind of wind. Prepared you for what you're trying to do now. To fly a heavier-than-air machine.
Orville. Yes, Will? Can't you sleep either?
Brother Wilbur. Always you two. Inseparable. Partners in business back home in Dayton, Ohio. Selling, repairing bicycles. But always consumed by one great ambition. To be the first ones to fly an aeroplane.
We've built it.
Interesting observation.
I just realized we've actually built a flying machine. Tomorrow I'll test it. Fly it.
Not unless this wind slackens. Let's listen to
It'll go down by morning.
it. You know, or in my quiet, modest way, I was just reflecting that you and I know more about aviation than the rest of the world put together.
I suppose we do at that.
We're geniuses.
Even if we never did go to college.
We even build our own engine.
Yes, Orville. A few months ago, in your workshop in Dayton. Remember?
There's no use, Will.
Another turn down.
I don't think we'll get any automobile company to build us an engine.
Yeah, they're sensitive about looking stupid.
Yeah, letting people think a flying machine is possible.
It occurs to me, old boy, we might build our own.
Then weeks of hard work, buying, making parts, fitting them together.
Well, I guess we'll have to run the crankshaft fore and aft. Start the motor from the rear.
Why, no. No. The propellers will do that. A turn of the propeller.
Always like that. Two minds working as one. Others worked alone. They failed. But you, Orville, you and your brother, you supplement each other. Then one day, back there in Dayton...
There, that does it. Looks enough like an engine to be one.
All we need is a magneto.
You found your magneto. You could hardly wait then.
It's working. Orville, I tell you, this thing's working. We've got our engine.
The rest was easy. You built your plane, shipped it here to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. The constant wind here, the broad expanse of land, ideal for your purpose. The other day, Wilbur tested the plane. No luck. It didn't leave the ground, just some damage. Now you, Orville. Tomorrow it's your turn to try. Only you can't sleep. A shadow at the back of your mind. A fleeting sense of fear.
Suppose something happens to me tomorrow. What if I crash? What about Will? He'll go on, of course, from where we left off. He must. But Willie, would I go on if anything happened to him?
Just not sleepy. Might as well get up. Put a few clothes on. Wrap a blanket about you. Open the door. Careful not to wake Wilbur. Lonely, desolate sand. Icy cold. Dark woodlands to one side of the dunes. Ocean on the other. And you stand there. A few stars. Tiny lights of a boat far out to sea. The lifeboat station a mile away. A few steps from you, the shed that houses your precious flying machine.
Might as well take a look at it. Make sure it's all right.
There it is, inside the shed. Like a giant box kite with a motor. Wings, 40 feet, tip to tip.
Da Vinci dreamed of something like this.
Yes, and Henson, Wenham, Maxim over in England, Denot, Vuillard in France, Langley over here. They experimented. You know why they failed, Orville. Their theories were all wrong. You and Wilbur proved that. They knew little or nothing about air pressure. You and Wilbur devoted years to that study.
Or there are better ways of catching pneumonia.
Oh, I just came out here to...
Wind.
I had a mind to look at that rudder that we damaged.
Oh, it's all right. Ooh, feels like Christmas out here.
Yeah.
Think we'll be home by then.
Night passing. You're asleep now, you're right. But you're not relaxed. Waiting. Tomorrow morning is the unknown future.
Orville, wake up.
What? Oh.
Breakfast in 10 minutes.
How's the wind?
Too high for any test.
Well, where's it from?
North, over 30 miles an hour.
Well, it's early yet. We'll put a clean shirt on today. Clean collar, too.
Why? You're elegant enough for both of us. I'd like to be comfortable.
Well, there are people coming over. Do you have to wear that moth-eaten cap? How about wearing a decent hat for once, huh?
Well, that wind has slackened. Might as well roll the flying machine out. You've invited all the local people to watch the test. Only a few have come. But enough so that they can witness the trial flight. Mr. Daniels will take a photograph when the plane leaves the ground.
Well, let's start the motor, Will. Warm her up a bit. Right. Make sure the rudders are all okay. Huh? That's fine. Check the wind, will you? I'll look at the rudders.
So you're about ready to test your flying machine, Orville Wright. No fanfare, no crowd, no excitement. Last night's fears all forgotten. Careful as you climb up into the plane. The plane is supported by skids. The skids will carry the machine over rails until the moment it takes off. If it takes off.
All set, all set. Good luck, Old. Cast off the rope.
Moving now. Wilbur running beside the machine, holding one of the wings to keep the plane on the rails.
Will, she's tilting to one side. Hold her. I can't. The wind's too strong. The wind's too strong. Don't try to take off. Too late.
Yes, too late. Gaining speed now. The plane lurches. Wind tears in a rudder.
Orville, stop the motor. Don't try to take off. You'll be killed. She's leaving the ground.
This is it, Orville. It's never been done before. You are the first man to fly a machine. Rising now 2 feet from the ground. 3. The machine wobbles a bit. Careful. Keep the wings balanced. Rising still. Rudder still giving trouble. 5 feet. 6. Still rising. Wind treacherous. But you, Orville Wright, you have been battling the wind for years. Steady. Still rising. 9 feet from the ground. 10.
Look out! He's coming down! Orville, you all right? Yes. What happened?
I don't know. How long was I off the ground?
12 seconds.
Orville. What? The machine flies. Let's make repairs. You try her.
Another flight. A third. A fourth. Nothing much to do now, except crate the machine for shipment back to Dayton. The job's done. The newspapers ignore your flying machine, but you'll go on to further experiments. Just now, Orville and Wilbur Wright, you sit there in your sister's living room, waiting for Christmas dinner and for the rest of the family to arrive. You sit there chatting idly.
Will, do you think there's any practical use for our plane?
Oh, it might be used for exploring.
Yeah. You know, we're carrying mail to out-of-way places.
Yeah.
You can't know, Orville Wright, that in a few years your brother will be dead. That you will go on into history alone. You can't know that within 50 years of this month, when you flew the first airplane at Kitty Hawk, giant planes carrying 50 passengers and more will fly the oceans. In your lifetime, there'll be 2 major world wars. You'll live to see thousands of mighty bombers streaming from America across the Pacific and Atlantic to defend civilization itself. You'll see jet planes travel faster than sound in a day when the eyes of the world turn skyward, when survival of your country and its allies may depend largely on air power. These things you can't possibly know, Orville Wright, as you sit there in your sister's home on Christmas Day, 1903. But vaguely you do know you've launched the world into a new era.
Well, I've got an idea that if a country had a few of our planes, no one would care about attacking.
Yeah, I think you're right, Orv. Maybe our planes could even put a stop to war.
Yeah. Bring about peace.
Now, here is Lieutenant General James H. Doolittle, Chairman of the National Committee to observe the 50th anniversary of Powered Flight.
As we look at it today, that flight of the Wright brothers made at Kitty Hawk ushered in what has proved to be the most momentous 50-year period in modern history.
During no other half-century have such vast changes taken place in the world. The aeroplane has been a great boon to mankind in drawing all the people of the world closer together and leading to better understanding. Unfortunately, it has also become an unparalleled medium of destruction. But we must never allow the specter of modern warfare to cloud our vision of the future. The airplane has brought knowledge where it did not exist before. It performs stirring missions of mercy. We must exploit to the utmost the advantages which this great social tool provides. I am glad to be chairman of the committee for the celebration of the 50th anniversary of powered flight. It is our purpose to further acquaint the American people with the great opportunities which aviation offers our nation. I am gratified that the Ladies Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars has helped in this job by devoting a program in their American Trail series to the story of the Wright brothers and the beginning of the air age.
Our thanks to General Doolittle. This has been the 12th chapter in the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars.
American Trail. The American Trail. Blazed in blood, defended in blood. Chapter 3, The Louisiana Purchase.
To others, Thomas Jefferson is president. To me, he is like a father. That he chose me, Meriwether Lewis, to be his private secretary is a matter of great pride to me. There is nothing I wouldn't do for him. In the year 1803, a nightmare had gripped us all. We groped through darkness on the very brink of a war for which we were not prepared. The president had said,
"If France attempts to occupy New Orleans, it must be at the cost of war."
In that dreadful hour, there was nothing I could do except pray that the president's efforts to preserve this country would be blessed. There had been a storm that morning. I stood outside the White House. I was about to leave when...
You there, young fella! Young fella!
I watched him walk towards me, a complete stranger. A big, red-faced man with a look of the frontier about him. He wore an old three-cornered hat. His tunic was travel-stained.
I reckon you must be Captain Meriwether Lewis, young man.
Yes, sir.
You're private secretary to the president.
Yes?
Well, I'm Jock Duncan from the Mississippi country, and I have very important business with the president.
There was no question about Duncan seeing the president. Mr. Jefferson sees almost everyone. He regards himself as the humble servant of the people.
Mr. President, there I stood, sir. Right there in New Orleans only 2 weeks ago, watching an American ship sailing into the harbor. And I couldn't believe what I saw happening under my very eyes.
No! No more American ships can come into New Orleans. No more.
You're not to close New Orleans to American shipping. Let that ship go in, you hear me? That's her in, I say. But if you don't, you're asking for trouble. Hey, Mr. Jefferson, the Spaniards have closed New Orleans to us, and we cannot get along without it.
It's so important?
Sir, it's our lifeblood.
Meriwether.
Mr. President.
While we're sitting here, Mr. Duncan might care for a little refreshment.
Certainly, sir.
Now, Mr. Duncan, I confess I'm a little vague about the importance of New Orleans to you.
Well, you see, sir, I'm spokesman for a lot of American farmers along the Mississippi. No, the situation is this. It takes too long to send our goods overland. It's quicker and cheaper to send them down the river to New Orleans than ship them up north to New York and Boston.
I see.
Mr. Jefferson, we cannot survive without New Orleans. I'm for marching on it and making it an American port. Let's send troops there and capture it.
Well, now, Mr. Duncan, will you let me inquire into this matter?
A local dispute between Spanish authorities at New Orleans and a few American farmers along the Mississippi. That's all it seemed to be to the president. Then one day...
Come in, come in. Oh, it's you, Merriweather. Come over here, my boy. I was looking at this silly bird. Do you think he's sick?
No, sir.
Well, he won't utter a sound.
He wants to be let out of his cage.
Oh, no, he's being punished.
Then just ignore him, sir. You pay too much attention to him.
Confound me, Merriweather. After all, I shouldn't let myself be dominated by a mockingbird now, should I?
No, sir.
You have something for me?
A dispatch from Paris.
Well, then read it, my boy. Your eyes are better than mine, you know.
Very well, sir. It reads, despite denials here in Paris, Napoleon Bonaparte has forced the Spanish government to cede New Orleans and the entire Louisiana territory to France.
What?
The French expect to take possession in the early part of next year.
I think I must go for a little walk, Merriweather.
Alone, sir?
If you don't mind, my boy. I want to think about this most dreadful news.
Next day, the president met with some of the delegates from the Mississippi country. I stood apart. The president had forgotten to put shoes on. He still wore his slippers, and his favorite red waistcoat seemed a little crumpled.
Gentlemen, the prospect of Bonaparte building a colonial empire at our back door is a frightening one.
We'll never be safe, sir.
If the French establish themselves on this continent, the Americas will be a battleground for European armies.
I fear so.
So it was Bonaparte who ordered New Orleans closed to us.
Yes.
A hostile act.
An indication of French policy towards us.
Mr. President, we mustn't allow Bonaparte to have New Orleans or any part of Louisiana.
Hey, let's make sure and take New Orleans right away. We'll talk about it afterwards.
An act of aggression?
A measure of self-preservation, sir. We have no choice.
If we could arrive at some peaceful settlement with Bonaparte...
Yeah, you cannot trust a man like that.
I was thinking that if we tried to buy New Orleans...
Buy it?
In that way, we could control the Mississippi country, even if the French occupied Louisiana.
We can't buy New Orleans, Mr. President.
The Constitution does not provide for the purchase of foreign territory. Mr. Jefferson, we cannot ignore the Constitution, the very document that you yourself helped to write.
I don't think the Constitution intended us to remain defenseless.
The president took the matter to Congress. Finally, Mr. Livingston, our minister to France, was instructed to explore the possibility of our buying New Orleans. Summer passed, autumn, winter. The snow was deep outside the White House. Sir, you shouldn't be standing out here in the cold.
Oh, Merriweather.
Come now, put this scarf on, sir.
Oh, well, now, that's very good of you. Thank you.
Hadn't you better go inside?
I'm worried. I'm very worried, my boy. We wait and we wait. Still, there's no word from Paris.
I don't think Bonaparte will sell us New Orleans.
I can't give up hope.
Time's getting short.
Yes, the French will soon be in New Orleans, won't they?
Yes. And that mustn't happen, sir.
Merriweather, Bonaparte needs money.
Needs it?
For his campaigns. Now, I wonder if he saw in front of him, let's say, $2 million in gold.
Congress very reluctantly granted the money. Mr. Jefferson sent James Monroe to Paris with it. Then began another wait. The weeks dragged by, and still no sign that Napoleon was tempted by the sight of the $2 million. It seemed to me that during these days the president grew older. Then one morning...
Sit down, Merriweather.
Thank you, sir.
Have you had your breakfast?
Not yet.
Oh, now you must eat, my boy. Pour yourself some coffee. Have something to eat.
I'll have some coffee, sir. Monroe's getting no further than Livingston did.
I've been thinking about it.
According to latest reports, you were right about one thing, sir. Bonaparte does need money.
There's something else. Suppose he should occupy New Orleans against our will. Could he hold it?
Against England?
Outside of Europe, France has had bad luck against the British. Merriweather, I'm going to try to force Bonaparte into selling us New Orleans.
How, sir?
I intend to write him a letter.
So the president wrote the letter. It was sent. To some extent, made public.
I feel that the United States must warn the leaders of France that should that nation persist in taking New Orleans, it will mean war. And from the moment France sets foot in New Orleans, the United States will ally herself with Great Britain.
Congress was stunned. The president had committed us to war and had threatened an alliance with the very country from which we had so recently won independence. The nation knew there was no turning back now, and faces were grim and bitter. There was a day when the man Duncan came to the White House. I met him in the foyer.
Captain Lewis, has the president gone out of his mind?
Mr. Duncan, I won't hear words against him.
What I had to say, I'll say to him.
Not in my presence, sir.
We have preserved our independence from the British Crown for 25 years in order for Mr. Jefferson to surrender it.
I take exception, sir.
Young man, you can take all the exception you want, for I'm a man who can defend his words.
Then defend them, sir.
Wear pistol, since I didn't carry a sword.
A pistol suits me.
Captain Lewis?
Mr. President.
Captain Lewis, return your pistol to its proper place, sir.
Yes, sir.
I forbid this matter to be carried any further. Now, that's an order, Captain.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Duncan, if you have something to talk about, come with me to my study.
Aye, Mr. President. For I no wish to harm this young man who's so devoted to you. In this moment, I'm a wee bit ashamed of myself, for he knows you better than anyone. He must have very good reason to trust you in your wisdom.
But the fear of a war for which we were not ready darkened the country. The president seldom slept. He would wander about the White House, sometimes coming into my room where I'd be working on his correspondence.
Am I interrupting you, my boy?
No, sir, no.
Let me sit down for a moment.
By the window, sir. It's a nice spring day.
Meriwether, they're saying I've gone beyond my presidential authority.
I know.
They say I've trifled with the Constitution.
You did the only thing possible, sir.
But still, I've gambled the fate of this country.
General Washington gambled it, too.
Yes. Yes, that comforts me a little.
More waiting. For days, weeks. Bonaparte remained silent. And then... Mr. President, word from Paris.
Let me see it, my boy. Let me see it. From Monroe. He says, "Sir, I am authorized to inform you that Bonaparte will sell New Orleans and the entire Louisiana territory, and nothing less than that."
Nothing less?
For the sum total of $15 million.
$15 million?
But we've won, Meriwether. We've won!
The president's plan had worked, but the amount required was staggering. The nation was divided.
The entire Louisiana territory? What do we want with it?
But we had New Orleans in the Mississippi River, man.
And a useless wilderness in the bargain.
The Northwest Territory was a useless bit of country, too, a few years back. No look at it.
Anyway, the Constitution's been hacked to pieces by this man in the White House.
You're out of your head, man. The Constitution's intact. So is the country, and not a drop of blood was shed. A man but for Thomas Jefferson would shortly be at war, and the country may well be destroyed, and there'd be no Constitution.
Meriwether, this bird is beginning to talk to me again. He seems to be in a much better mood.
He should be, sir.
You know, I'm bewildered. I don't know what we're going to do with this immense wilderness we've acquired. Meriwether, I've heard remarkable stories from the Indians about Louisiana. They say that there are strange beasts in it. Prehistoric animals, I would judge.
We could explore it, sir.
I think we should. The idea is quite fascinating.
May 1803, the American frontier was expanded to the Rocky Mountains. The Constitution had withstood its first major test. Its meaning had been broadened a little. The need of the time had been met. And soon, out of that vast, savage country that was called the Louisiana Territory, new states were born. This has been the third chapter of the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Next week, another story to make you proud of this great nation of ours as we follow the American Trail. The American Trail. American Trail, blazed in blood, defended in blood. Chapter 4, The Lewis and Clark Expedition. (1803). The newly acquired Louisiana Territory, several times larger than the United States, was a vast, uncharted wilderness. For years, Thomas Jefferson had dreamed of an expedition that would explore it. Now, as president, he had the power to commission an expedition. To head it, he chose his private secretary, Captain Meriwether Lewis.
Meriwether, you can't imagine my feelings at this moment.
I think I can, sir.
I believe I've always pictured myself taking this trip.
I know.
To see for the first time country no other American has ever seen. To look upon strange animals. There must be many curious animals in that wilderness. Prehistoric ones, maybe?
There could be, sir.
Yes. Well, now, who will you take with you?
I have a couple of men in mind. There's Billy Clark, Lieutenant Clark, I mean.
Clark. Yes, he sounds like a good choice.
He understands astronomy and he's worked on maps.
Meriwether, I see this more than just the exploration of Louisiana. I see it as a first attempt to map a route across this entire continent. All the way to the Pacific Ocean.
It may take years, sir, but
I suppose one would have to follow the Missouri River.
A year later, Lewis, Clark, 30 volunteer soldiers, and a famous scout and Indian fighter, a man named Wetzel, moved up the Missouri into the unknown.
Captain Lewis! Rapids! Rapids ahead!
There were rapids. There were Indians. There was sickness. The going became harder as they fought their way up the mighty Missouri. And then...
Lieutenant Clark?
Yes, Mr. Wetzel?
I reckon you can tell Captain Lewis I'm going back.
Going back? Afraid he means it, Meriwether.
A man like that turning back?
Bad for the soldiers. I reckon most of them feel like turning back, too.
There's no turning back for any of us, Billy. With or without Wetzel, we go on.
By October, they had traveled some 1,200 miles up the Missouri to the Dakota country. Lewis decided to winter there, and the soldiers built a fort, Fort Mandan. One day, as Lieutenant Clark worked on the map he was making of the Dakota country.
Lieutenant Clark, I have a visitor.
Well, for the...
This is Madame Charbonneau.
Pleasure, madame.
I Shoshone Squaw.
She's married to a Frenchman up here.
Oh?
My name Sacajawea.
Saka...
Sacagawea.
Oh, yes, of course.
She and her husband want to come along with us when we leave here.
Come with us, why?
I speak Indian tongues. I know country. You need guides.
Yes, I suppose we do.
Well, Sacagawea, we'll talk about it.
Yes, you talk. I come back.
You don't seem to like the idea, Billy.
Meriwether, we're carrying a small fortune with us in rifles, ammunition, supplies.
I hadn't thought about that.
She and this husband of hers may have some idea of leading us into a trap.
But they needed someone who spoke the Indian languages, and it was agreed the Indian girl would go along. So another spring came, and the expedition pushed on. It was big country. It was often terrifying. Day after day, week in, week out, as far as eye could see. An endless wilderness that swarmed with buffalo.
You're a long way from your own people, Sacagawea.
Yes.
Why is that?
When I small child, enemy of my people take me away.
You were stolen?
Yes. A white man free me.
A white man?
My husband.
How long have you been away from your own people?
5 years.
5 years, eh?
Maybe we find my people.
Oh, hello, Billy.
I reckon I was listening. Janie.
My name no Jenny.
You're Janie to me. I can't pronounce the other one. What sort of people are your tribe?
They Indians. They hunt, fish.
Are they friendly?
Sometimes.
Suppose we run into them.
If I with you, they no kill. I go. I help my husband.
Meriwether, I'm not so sure about her. And I don't like her husband either.
Oh, your foot bothering you, Billy?
I'm all right.
Clark suffered. They all did. Hardship was taking its toll. The men were sick, medicine ran low, progress became slower. Then one morning, as the soldiers broke camp beside the river, Lewis climbed a hill.
Lieutenant Clark! Billy! Come up here!
What's the trouble, Meriwether?
Look. As far to the west as you can see.
Man,
I never saw the likes of that before.
they must be the mountains that hold up the sky.
So 1 year after starting out, Lewis and Clark sighted the Rocky Mountains as the Missouri River grew stronger and stronger. And then one day, the expedition, exhausted to the point of collapse, camped deep in the Rocky Mountain wilderness. The Missouri had ended.
We must have come a long way, Billy.
According to my reckoning, more than 2,000 miles.
Do you think we'll ever see the Pacific Ocean?
If we don't, we'll just die out here somewhere.
Captain Lewis! Smoke signal!
Smoke signal.
Where, Sergeant?
Over there, sir! On that hill!
Oh, yes.
We've been seen.
Very much seen. Look, coming out of the valley over there.
Indians.
And I think I know who's responsible.
Sacagawea?
Yes, I don't see her around.
Nor her husband. Men, keep to the cover of the rocks. Don't open fire until I give the order. And pick your target carefully before firing. That's all. Good luck.
Give the order, Meriwether.
Wait. Who's that running out of the rocks?
Sacagawea.
Where's she going? Sacagawea! Come back here! Come back!
Janie, come back!
Hold your fire, men! Hold it!
She's crazy, that girl.
Does she know them?
She seems to. She's talking to them.
She's coming back.
Meriwether, I still don't like it.
Come. These my people. They Shoshonis. Indian chief, my brother.
There was great rejoicing at Sacagawea's return to her people. A feast was prepared. But there was something about the manner of the Indians that none of the white men liked. And when the feast began, they stayed close together.
You posted guards over our supplies, Billy?
Yes, Sacagawea's big brother has his eye on them, on our guns, too.
Careful. He's watching us.
And I'm watching him.
They're getting a little wild.
Meriwether, I have a strong feeling that if any of us go to sleep, we'll wake up without our scalps.
The Indian village finally slept, or seemed to. In a wigwam, Billy Clark and Meriwether Lewis waited and listened.
It's almost dawn.
If they're coming, they'll come soon.
I was just thinking. Here we are, you, me, the rest of us, waiting to be massacred by a tribe of savages. Why?
We knew what to expect, Billy.
But we came. Why?
Maybe the instinct for nobility that causes some of us to risk life and limb just to make things easier for those who come after us.
Meriwether, you make me feel real noble.
Quiet. Listen.
Someone outside. Jamie.
Sacagawea. What is it?
Come, we leave. I go with you, but we leave now. I got horses waiting. Come, we go.
Sacagawea, what happened back at the village?
My brother want to kill you all.
What changed his mind?
I tell him white soldier coming.
West of the Rocky Mountains, on the great tree-covered slopes, icy winds drove through the forests. Supplies ran low. Some of the men looked like living skeletons as they followed the Columbia River.
At least we escaped massacre.
In order to freeze to death.
We on high ground, not so cold soon.
How far have we come, Billy?
3,000 miles, I reckon.
And been gone, how long is it? 18 months?
18 years, it seems like.
I hear something. Listen.
Something. Yes.
Sacagawea. Do you hear anything?
The great water.
Look. Man, look at that.
Come on!
It's the ocean. The Pacific. Sacagawea, come here. Look at that ocean. Look at
Meriwether, we've done it. We've reached the Pacific. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
There it sparkled under the morning sun. The blue Pacific. The surf thundering a challenge to all those who might dare to follow the trail blazed by this little band of brave men. But people did follow. Soon the covered wagons rolled west of the Rocky Mountains to the very shores of the Pacific Ocean, to the eternal memory of Meriwether Lewis and Billy Clark. This has been the fourth chapter of the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the veterans of foreign wars. Next week, another story to make you proud of this great country of ours as we follow the American Trail. Trail. The American Trail. Blazed in blood. Defended in blood. Chapter 10. The Rich Desert. Arizona, the year 1879.
The desert. And thousands of square miles. Yellow, red sandstone. Rock formations. Cactus. The desert. Graveyard of legends. Been here 150 million years. Hasn't changed much in the last million. Graveyard of men, too.
Water. Water.
White man.
Water.
Sunburned.
Water.
A white man sunburned almost black.
Water. Water.
There's water in the desert if he can find it. There, somewhere in the purple, shimmering haze.
Water.
It'll be over pretty soon. Thirst will drive him mad. The sun will do the rest.
Water. I can hear it. Water.
The man scoops the water up with his hands.
What is it? Holy stuff, what is it? Piece of oil. 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 What's good oil to me now? I found oil and I want water.
How you feeling, boy?
Where am I?
My ranch house. I'm Pete Kitchen. Some of my men found you wandering about the desert.
So the man is alive. Safe in Pete Kitchen's adobe house.
What's your name, son?
Charlie Smith, Utah.
How long you been down here in the desert?
About a year. Me and another fella had a run-in with Apaches. He got killed.
You were raving about oil when they brought you in.
I found some.
Recall where?
A rock spring somewhere. Oil seepage running into it. Gotta find it again.
Might be lucky, son. Might find it again.
I'll find it. Hey, what are you doing here in the desert?
Oh, I came here from Kentucky 25 years ago. Claimed 1,000 acres of land. Well, look out the window there.
Green cabbages, green vegetables. Farmland out here in this desert.
Well, land's in a fertile valley. Summer rains take care of it. I've licked the desert, son. Pays me $10,000 a year clear profit.
Must have been hard work.
I've known fellas spend a lifetime in the desert looking to get rich quick. They died broke.
Who's that over there by the fence?
Well, it's Mary Hawkins. She's like my own daughter.
Well, isn't she?
I raised her since she was 3 years old. Had to take her from Apaches. Her folks were massacred. Wagon train wiped out. Now, Mary!
Golden hair, blue eyes, white sombrero, rose-colored riding skirt. The girl walks over to them, smiling. She says,
You look much better now.
he says,
I feel better, too.
You gonna stay with us?
Well, I'd like to, but I found oil.
The desert's a big place.
I'm not scared of the desert.
yes, oil is out there in the desert. Somewhere in the hot sand. Somewhere among the rotting bones, the pitiful hopes of other men who were not afraid of the desert. He found it once. He can find it again. The man searches for it in the glare of the sun and drifting columns of heat. The desert knows how to swallow a man. The desert knows how to keep a secret.
The oil's here, among these rocks. It must be.
In the night, the incredibly beautiful desert night, stars so close overhead that a man feels he can touch them by merely raising his hand. The man who feels the firmament only a fingertip away makes no more than a tiny spark of light with his sagebrush fire. And the secret of the desert stays there, somewhere in the limitless darkness.
Oil. I'll find it. I'll find it. I'll have millions. I'll find the oil. Oil. Oil.
But the merciless heat of a billion candle power sun beats and bakes the man until it changes the very words in his mouth.
Water.
And the pitiful creature once more crawls back to the kitchen ranch to die. Or perhaps to live. Finally, to live.
You tried, son. Yeah, I tried.
That's all a man can do, Charlie.
Charlie, I've land up near Tucson. I'll stock it for you, a wedding gift. I want you and Mary to have a good start.
2 years. They're settled on their own ranch now, tending cattle, feeding hogs, raising crops to sell in Tucson. But out there, beyond the farm, still there, the desert.
Stop it. Stop it.
What?
Standing there in the door looking out there.
Mary.
I've watched you for weeks. You lay awake nights. You get up in the night. I've seen you standing there at the window looking out. That oil. There's nothing there but desert. And that desert will kill you.
Mary, lately I seem to be remembering certain landmarks. Maybe if I made one more trip.
The desert has come to life. It's spring.
Yes! Yes! This is the place. I found it. Somewhere here.
So this is where his oil is, at last.
Mary, I'm going to drill.
The money.
We've got the money.
Men hired, equipment set up, a 40-foot derrick, a whole season's crop of citrus paid for this. The big skeleton tower that will operate the cable weight, the steam engine that will drive it, cabins for men to live in, huts to store machinery in. It all costs money. What ambitious man ever stopped to think of money when a mortgage could be signed with 2 cents worth of ink? A hole is dug. The first steel bit is lowered into. The cable weight is ready to start driving the bit downward into the earth.
Let go!
Midsummer now, blazing, merciless sun. The drilling goes on. Men fall sick. They're sent home. Fresh men come out.
Stop the motor! Stop it! Something's happened.
Boss, there's no oil here. You'd be better off drilling in Texas.
Stop that motor!
What? Texas? That's all they're talking about up in Tucson. One of the new men was talking about it. Oil. All over Texas.
Quit here, go somewhere else, admit failure, abandon all this drilling equipment in the desert, go to Texas to start all over again. What will Mary say?
Mary, it's true. I've checked. They're finding oil all over Texas.
Charlie, I won't listen to any more of it.
You must.
I can't stand any more. Every penny we had gone. We're in debt. We've had to sell good cattle to pay for your...
Mary, listen. This time I know where the oil
I'll
is.
go crazy if you don't
We'll
stop.
sell this ranch. Use the money to buy land in Texas. We'll start drilling there. We've got to.
If we sell this ranch, we'll have nothing left. I can't stand this anymore. I can't.
The man doesn't know when to give up. Well, if oil's to be found, Texas is the place. acquired some land in Texas. Drilling equipment is set up. Now,
Let it go!
You think we could drill deeper than that? Mary, we're down to 20 feet. 30 feet.
drilling, still drilling. Oil has come in not 20 miles away. 35 feet, 40, 45. Now. The jet of black, smoky fluid shoots up out of the ground skyward. The gusher has come in.
It's oil. Mary, what did I tell you? Look at the oil. We're rich. That fellow over there, the surveyor, look at his face. He can't believe what he's seeing.
And the man kneels there in the dirty treasure that he has wrenched from the desert with his hands and his heart and almost his life. The man has cracked the desert secret. And he prays and he cries, and as men will when they have fooled the mighty desert. The man laughs triumphantly.
Oh, mister, I knew I could do it. I found oil. I got it out of the desert. Well, mister, what do you think of my oil?
That's not oil.
What?
It's only water. Water and mud.
Charlie. The oil, he said. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
And the man is sitting in the stuff now. For even he can see that this is not oil. Just his desperate hope that the desert would fulfill a great promise. But the desert had given no promise.
No. There's no oil.
And the man who felt that he had found a great destiny now contemplates the long years of failure ahead.
There's sulfur. You got good sulfur deposits, I think.
Sulfur. What good is sulfur to me?
What good is sulfur? It'll probably make you a very rich man.
So the man has won, challenged the desert and beaten it. This sulfur of his needed for making newsprint, phosphates, textiles, and within his lifetime for the products of another century, new medicines, rubber tires, gasoline for airplanes. No question of it, Charlie Smith has won. There were others. In the years since then, 1,000 Charlie Smiths, 1,000. Lured by the riches of the great Southwest, they dared the desert time and time again. Some found oil, gold, silver, copper, zinc, salt, and took them for industrial America. And some found nothing. And the desert just lay there silent, watching, still watching, half amused, brooding on its secret. Knowing man, with all his schemes, with all his work, has found less than 1/1,000,000th of the wealth beneath its sand. And the rest the desert holds, who knows?
You have just heard the 10th chapter in the story of the American Nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars. American Trail. The American Trail. Blazed in blood, defended in blood. Chapter 1, Dispatch to New York.
1776.
There is no longer room for hope. If we want to be free, we must fight. I repeat, sir, we must fight. An appeal to arms and the God of hosts is all that is left to us.
In 1787, almost 9 years later, a stagecoach hurtled along the rough lanes that led from New York to Virginia. Inside the coach sat Tom Farrell, a newspaper reporter from New York City. As he sat there, he planned how he would write the story he would soon send back to his newspaper.
Dispatch to the New York Packet. Date line, March 18th, 1787. Your humble servant, being considered by his betters fit to report the events to occur in Philadelphia in May of this year, and having at his disposal a few weeks to spare, is now taking opportunity to travel by stagecoach to Virginia, there to interview one Patrick Henry, an aggressive opponent of the new American Constitution. Sir, do I have the honor of addressing Mr. Patrick Henry?
You do.
I'm Tom Farrell, sir, a journalist from New York.
New York, eh? Well, I can't blame you for wanting to come to Virginia. Sit down.
Thank you, sir.
And let me tell you something. I'm not an overly cautious man, so you'd best mind what you ask me. And speak up while I pour a glass of cider.
Sir, is it true that you oppose the signing of the Constitution?
It is.
Would you care to say why?
Not at all. The 13 American colonies did not wage a bloody war to win their independence from a foreign king in order to calmly surrender that independence to a central government. It's this idea of one central government ruling all 13 states that I oppose.
But, sir, Virginia would be represented in the central government.
We want independence, not representation. And I'll oppose this Constitution with as much vigor as I oppose the Royal Crown.
The Constitution had not yet been approved or signed. It was still just a piece of paper. And Patrick Henry, in opposing it, was asserting his right as a free man to express his own personal opinion of the most important issue of his day. On the way to Philadelphia, newspaperman Tom Farrell became friendly with one of the delegates who was also traveling to the convention where the Constitution would be debated and signed. Signed, that is, if a sufficient number of delegates approved it.
Newspaperman, eh?
Yes, sir.
Well, what do you think about this Constitution?
Well, I don't really know.
You don't know. Of course you don't. Nor does anybody else in their right senses.
Well, it's pretty much the first time in history that people have been able to assemble and decide for themselves what kind of government they want to live under. You can't deny that.
Why do we need any government, eh?
Don't you think we do?
I'm from Western Pennsylvania. Why should we pay taxes to anyone outside Pennsylvania? Mark my words, there's going to be a stack of trouble in Philadelphia. There'll be blood spills.
There's some being spilled now. Listen.
Men who but a few short years ago had fought shoulder to shoulder for independence were now shooting at each other across disputed state lines. Tom Farrell knew that America could not survive unless all the states were united under one central government. A few days later, Tom Farrell sat in one of the crowded taverns of Philadelphia with the delegate who had been his stagecoach companion.
Look around, Mr. Farrell. Do you smell trouble?
I was looking at faces.
Grim faces, eh? Grim and serious. Not a smiling face here. Keep your eyes on yonder table. See the fellow with one hand touching the hilt of his sword?
I'd appreciate it if the gentleman seated opposite me would repeat his previous statement.
With extreme pleasure, sir. I'll repeat my statement and my intention, if need be, to defend it with my sword. It is my contention that the southern states have no business joining a union, and that they should be separate and apart from your northern states.
Defend yourself! A duel. Tom Farrell, watching the two men, sat there horribly fascinated. Two men slashing at each other with cold steel, fighting to the death over a piece of paper that the Founding Fathers hoped would bind together 4 million people. It was night, and Tom Farrell walked alone. He walked until he found himself in the ghostly silence of the Philadelphia waterfront. He wanted to think and to be alone.
Good evening to you, sir.
Huh? Oh, good evening.
A real bit of pleasure seeing a living soul down here.
It's like a graveyard.
Aye, lad. It's dead all right. Look for yourself. American ships, a good dozen of them lying there idle, empty of cargo and their timbers rotting.
But why? Why aren't they loading cargo and sailing?
You should know that, lad. Foreign countries will have nothing to do with us. In their eyes, we're not a proper nation. They didn't recognize us. Now, what is General Washington going to do about that, sir?
I don't know. I wish I did.
What about those other fellas? Madison, Monroe, Hamilton, all the rest of them. What are they going to do about American ships lying idle?
Yes. What were they going to do? These men who would frame the new Constitution. In early May, Farrell was granted an interview with a very old but a very great man who had seen more of the world than any other living American statesman of his time.
So you write for a newspaper, eh, boy?
Yes, sir, the New York...
Well, I do a little writing myself. Here, let me pour you some tea.
Thank you, sir.
And make yourself comfortable, Tom.
Sir, I was just reflecting. When I'm married and have children, it'll be something for me to talk about. That's that drinking tea with the great Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, you better keep it to yourself. They're calling me an old fool, saying I'm in my second childhood. They say I'm too old to know what I'm doing. Confound me, Tom, I'm not a day over 80.
Pardon, sir?
Well, let's say 81.
You look just fine, Mr. Franklin.
I do, don't I? Now look at this new coat of mine. Tailored in Paris. First time I've worn it since I came back from Europe.
Elegant, sir. Extremely elegant.
Well, now you have some questions, I suppose. Fire away.
Sir, are you satisfied with the Constitution in its present form? After all, it isn't the way you originally drafted it.
No, it isn't. I must confess there are several parts of it that I don't approve. But a document of that sort cannot please everybody. When you assemble a number of men to have the advantage of their combined wisdom, you inevitably assemble with those men all their prejudices, their mistaken opinions, their local interests, and sometimes selfish viewpoints.
That's very true, sir.
But you know, Tom, it astonishes me to find this Constitution, with all its margins for error, so near to perfection. I believe we can build a fine nation if we follow this charter. And we must. The rest of the world is watching us.
Still, not everybody seems to want it.
No, it has its enemies. But the will of the majority of people must be served. The majority, not the minority, must rule this land of ours.
But the will of the majority of the people did not concern the minorities who fought tooth and nail against the American Constitution. Just as today, when wicked groups in America would wreck our way of life, so in those days, there were those who were prepared to use any methods they could find to prevent the Constitution becoming law. And Tom Farrell, sitting in a tavern a few days later, was scared. Scared because all about him were men who plotted the downfall of the United States before they were united. And with him was one of these very men, the delegate he had met on the stagecoach.
I've something to tell you, Mr. Farrell.
Oh?
Well, look who's here and just about to leave. Alexander Hamilton, mixing with the common people. Stop him and ask him what he thinks about the Constitution.
Excuse me. Excuse me, Mr. Hamilton.
Can I be of help to you?
Question, sir, if you don't mind. I'm Farrell of the New York Packet.
Ah, yes. What can I do for you, Mr. Farrell?
Tell me, sir, do you think you'll get enough votes to make the Constitution law?
I don't know. But I know this. If we fail to win support for it, America will again become a colony and be ruled over by an English viceroy. Is there anything else?
No, sir, nothing. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton.
Well, it's a fine story that fellow Hamilton would have us believe.
You were going to tell me something.
Oh, listen to me. Me and those who think like me, we found a way to prevent the Constitution from being signed.
A way to prevent it?
The Constitution cannot be signed until a vote has been taken to approve what it says. You understand?
I understand.
Now, as you doubtless know, the vote cannot be taken unless, mind you, unless 45 members of the convention are present on the floor.
I see. Yes, I think I understand.
It's simple. Enough of us intend to stay away from the convention just to make sure there will never be 45 members present, so no vote will ever be taken. The Constitution will have to be tossed out. You look impressed, Mr. Farrell.
Hey, here, you, hold on. You mongrel and those like you. What? To oppose the Constitution is your right, but it's not your right to sabotage it. It's not your right to prevent other men from expressing themselves. You're a foul swine, sir. Your place is at the convention, and I'll be one to see you go there.
Now, see here, you...
Listen, all of you. We're going to need 45 delegates at the convention. Now, who's with me? Grab every delegate here in this place and drag them to Convention Hall.
You'll not drag me anywhere. You'll not ram this Constitution down our throats.
You'll be there.
I'd like to see you lay your hands on me, sir. Oh!
You'll be there, sir.
There were a score of divided opinions in that tavern, but the majority of the men wanted to see the Constitution voted on. And they took hold of the rebel delegates there and dragged them all the way to the convention hall to make sure the required 45 delegates were present, enough to take a vote one way or another. The Constitution faced life or death. For the first time in many long weeks, there was a silence at the convention. And General Washington, the man who had led American troops to victory in the Revolutionary War, faced the assembly.
We who are gathered here must now determine by a vote once and for all whether or not this document, called by us the American Constitution, shall decide for this generation and all those to follow a way of life dedicated to individual liberty and the security of all the states. We who have planned it have full knowledge that it may contain mistakes, and we have accordingly left the way open for future generations to rectify any of these mistakes to suit the times in which they live.
A few hours later, Tom Farrell wrote the final paragraphs of the story he would send to New York.
September 17, 1787. Dateline, Philadelphia. Dispatch to the New York Packet. Your humble servant, having witnessed the conclusion of the events in this city, is able to report that the American Constitution has been approved by a majority of the delegates sent here by the 13 states. All that is now left to do is for the states themselves to ratify and make the Constitution the law of the land. My last impression of it all is the look on General Washington's face. He did not seem to know what was going on about him at the last. He stared straight ahead, and one knew what he wanted. Will this Constitution succeed in uniting this country? Will it prevail?
You and I know it did. Oh, not without further warfare and human misery, but it did prevail. We are living proof of it. We who breathe the fresh air of liberty, whose fathers in every generation have stood ready to defend with their blood what we have in this country of ours. And we too stand ready. Aye, ready. And so you have heard the first chapter in the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Next week, another story to make you proud of this great country of ours as we follow the American Trail. American Trail. American Trail, blazed in blood, defended in blood. Chapter 5, Samuel Slater's Machine. In the year 1789, a young man set sail from England for New York.
His name was Samuel Slater. I met him soon after he came to this country. I try to picture during the 66 long days it took him to cross the ocean, standing there on the deck of a sailing ship, wretched, lonely, terribly homesick for his native England. He never got over that feeling, yet he never went back. In those days, Alexander Hamilton had said we should encourage the importation of new inventions from abroad. One of the men who agreed with him was a Rhode Island businessman named Moses Brown. Soon after Samuel arrived in this country, he went to Providence to see Mr. Brown.
So tell me, Slater, these Arkwright cotton mills in England, they must be something.
Oh, yes, they are, sir. Quite something.
You worked for these fellows, Strutt and Arkwright.
For some time.
You know, we're offering a reward to anyone who can duplicate these English machines.
Yes, the reward induced me to come over here.
Well, my boy, we'll see you get all the cooperation you need. You claim you can actually build one of these machines.
With no trouble, sir.
Oh. You have the plans, design, patents?
No. You can't take plans or patents out of England.
Then how in blazes?
I've memorized everything.
Memorized? And just how will you go about building a cotton mill in this country?
Well, first of all, I'll have to find some good iron workers and carpenters. And then teach them how machine parts are made.
Samuel's confidence impressed Moses Brown. He brought Samuel to Pawtucket to start work on the cotton mill. That was when I met him. My father, a machinist, agreed to work with him. And one Sunday, Samuel came to tea.
Do you take sugar in your tea, Mr. Slater?
Very little. Oh, that's plenty. Thank you.
You must be lonely over here.
Well, it's an experience. Let's put it that way.
How do you find people here in New England?
I really haven't had time to get to know them.
You don't find them friendly, do you?
Well, I suppose they have to get to know me, too.
You'll find they're all very nice.
At the moment, they seem to resent me. When I pass them on the street, there's something in their faces. Hostility.
Hostility? Oh, I'm sure it's just your imagination.
But Samuel was right. Only a few days later, on the edge of town, in the small meadow where the cotton mill was being built.
You, mister.
Yes?
My name's Manley, Timothy Manley.
Well?
What's going on here?
It's no secret. We're building machinery.
A cotton mill?
Yes.
I make spinning wheels and I repair them. It's hard enough for a man and his wife to make a living without seeing a machine built that'll do a man's work and take his job away. I'm warning you. If you hang around here, we'll smash you and we'll smash your machine.
But the warning was ignored. Samuel worked harder than ever. He told me about the incident one Saturday afternoon. We were walking along one of the little cobblestone streets past the blacksmith shop that I remember so well.
I've seen this sort of thing before. In England.
Sort of thing?
Fear of the cotton mill. I saw a mob actually destroy one.
You think it could happen here?
It could.
Oh, what a dreadful thought.
Look at the way people stare at me. If you weren't with me, they'd probably stone me.
Hot muffins. Hot muffins.
Ah, that sounds like England.
Does it?
And the cottage on the corner. The thatched roof. The little garden and the water pump in the square. Oh, it's all so much like a little bit of England. Oh, here's the fellow.
Still hanging around, Mr. Slater.
We'll discuss it another time, Mr. Manley.
Suddenly, the cotton mill was finished. All that remained to do was test the machinery. Moses Brown, my father, a lot of other people came to see the machine actually work. I stood with them, a little frightened.
Sam, blast me, but this machine of yours is a queer-looking monster.
Ah, she's beautiful.
And we're supposed to believe it'll work.
It will.
That mess of wire, metal, and wood will spin cotton?
Yes, sir.
Show me. I'll believe this when I see it.
We were all very, very nervous as Samuel walked away from us. I watched him pull back some levers.
Oh, by glory. Why, it's working. Sam, you've done it, boy. We've got a cotton mill. What's that? What was that?
Someone had thrown a stone through a window. Outside the mill, a mob of angry men and women were gathered.
All right, Slater. You had your warning.
I wouldn't come any closer, Manley.
I told you what we do. Now we're going to do it.
Get back.
Manley, you try anything, we'll put you in jail.
You won't live to see that, Mr. Brown.
Destroy anything, and we'll build it again. And get soldiers to guard it.
We're not scared of soldiers.
Listen to me, all of you.
We didn't come here to talk.
Let him talk. Let him talk.
Now listen. The machine will give everybody a job. I'll have to teach you how to run it. Why, we'll produce more cotton in 1 week than you've seen in a lifetime.
I saw them staring at Samuel. Most of them wanted to listen. Only a few doubted what he was telling them.
And we can sell cheaper. The demand for machine-made cotton will increase. That will mean still more jobs.
Slater, you can't prove any of this.
It's been proved. In England, by machines just like this one. And English cotton is being sold all over the world.
All right. All right, Slater. We'll give you a chance.
The mill started working. People from all over the country came to see this wonder of the age. Samuel and I were married. And as time went on, we were blessed with a baby son. And it seemed to us that nothing could ever spoil our happiness. And then...
Sam, we're in trouble.
You worry too much about trouble, Moses.
I'm serious, Sam. Something we hadn't counted on. American people prefer foreign goods. They won't buy our cotton.
That doesn't make common sense.
No, that's how things are.
Then we'll fight this foreign competition.
How?
We'll produce more cotton. Lower prices, flood the market.
We'll be ruined if we do that.
We'll be ruined if we don't.
They manufactured more cotton than seemed possible. Samuel called it mass production. He worked day and night, finding ways to improve his machine. I seldom saw him. Then, one cold winter night, we lost our little son. He died with pneumonia. In the dreadful days that followed, I began to know my husband better than I'd ever known him before.
Our little boy is not really gone. The love he had for us, the love we had for him, it's all about us. It's as though he were just in the next room. Out of sight, but still here.
I know.
Lately, I've been thinking about the children of this town. Someday I'd like to do something for them. In memory of our boy.
Do something?
Hannah, do you know what a Sunday school is?
No.
We must build one. A place where the children of the town can be taught an understanding of God. Where they can have religious training.
I don't think there is such a place in the country.
There will be, Hannah.
Samuel built his Sunday school. The first one this country had ever seen. Now he was part of the town. Bitterness against him had turned to respect and fondness. The people in this part of the country liked his hard-headedness and his straightforward belief in decency. Sometimes I think the working people understood Samuel better than our close friends did. Tim Manley did.
Mr. Brown, I was looking for Mr. Slater.
Come back another time.
You don't like me?
No, I've got a good memory. I wouldn't have given you a job the way Sam Slater did.
No, maybe not, but... Oh, hello, Mr. Slater.
Good morning.
Hello, Sam.
I'd like a word with you, Mr. Slater.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm quitting my job.
Quitting?
Me and a few more. We're all leaving you.
All right.
I've got something else to say.
I'm listening.
We know as much about your machine as you do.
You should.
We all do.
And Sam Slater taught you. He taught the whole bunch of you.
He taught us. That don't mean we're tied to him.
Somebody taught me. I didn't stay tied to them.
That's the way it is with us.
What are you driving at, Manley?
Me and some others, we're going off to build a cotton mill of our own.
What? Sam, you heard what he said?
I heard.
All right, Mr. Slater. What are you going to do about it?
Do?
I'll tell you what we're going to do, Manley. We'll slap you in jail.
I'd like to see that.
Don't you stand there grinning at me, you common thief.
I'm no thief.
You're worse than one.
Why, you won't...
Don't you raise your hand to me. I'll break your head with this cane.
May I say something now?
Say what you like. It won't make no difference.
Get out. Get out and build your cotton mill. You and your friends. Build your mill, and I'll help you.
What's that?
This one mill can't meet the demand. We'll need all the mills we can get if we want to put American cotton on the world market.
So they broke from Samuel, this little group of New England men. Soon others had the same idea, and from all parts of the country we heard of more and more mills being constructed. That's the end of Samuel's story. Except that one evening... Samuel? What is it? Has something happened?
War's been declared.
War?
With England.
Oh, Samuel.
Whatever I contributed when I came here, I found opportunity. Whatever I gave, much more has been given to me. I love the memory of the country I came from, and I always will. But I've made my home here. And this is my country.
But the War of 1812 drew to an end, and the United States again looked into the future. This time, into an era that saw the rise of American industry as it spread from New England all across the country. The story of Samuel Slater, the father of American manufacturing, is an American story. Whatever he gave, this country gave much more in return. And no man knew that better than Samuel Slater. This has been the 5th chapter in the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the veterans of foreign wars. Next week, another story to make you proud of this great country of ours as we follow the American Trail. The American Trail. The American Trail. Blazed in blood. Defended in blood. Chapter 7. The Magic Wire. Washington, D.C., the night of March 2nd, 1844.
The shabby figure moves away from the shadows of the Senate building. It doesn't matter much who he is, some crackpot, a would-be inventor. You see all kinds in Washington.
Cab? You want a cab, mister?
Thank you, no.
Oh, what? Well, if it ain't the professor. Well, you're not sociable, Professor.
Say, is it right you want the Congress to give you $30,000 to prove your invention works? Don't tell me they're not going to give you the money.
Thick-headed oaf.
A man to be laughed at. He's a big joke around Washington. Morse. Professor Samuel Finley Breese Morse invented something he calls the telegraph. And nobody seems to care.
Senators, congressmen, 12 years of talking to them. They know my telegraph works. They've seen it work from one room to another. Why won't they believe it'll work over a long distance? Why won't they let me have the money to prove it? It's for the country's benefit.
Well, if he didn't get the money appropriated tonight, he may as well give up. Congress adjourns tonight. So the man's come home, or what he's called home for several months. A big, white, colonial-type house. Belongs to a government official who went to school with Morse. Commissioner of Patents, Ellsworth. Morse has been a house guest for several months. The big, square foyer. The winding staircase. Rich carpets. Good paintings. The professor walks upstairs. His room is on the second floor. Well, it's a room. 4 walls. Washstand. Writing desk. Everything in very good taste. Besides, a man has to live somewhere. A cheap lodging house. A park bench. Or the hospitality of a friend. Call it charity. The professor takes off his coat, sits down on the edge of the bed.
53 years old. And a failure. A lifetime of failure. Yes?
It's me, Professor.
Oh, just a moment. Let me put a jacket on.
Annie Ellsworth, daughter of the commissioner. Young, beautiful.
Samuel.
Sorry I kept you waiting.
I waited up. I heard you come in. Did Congress... Oh, Samuel. You haven't had any food, have you? There's a tray of sandwiches in the parlor. You must eat.
The parlor is cozy enough. Nice fire burning. Silver coffee pot. Chicken sandwiches. But the man just sits there brooding, staring into the fire. The girl watches him.
I was thinking of 30 years ago. Long, long before you were born. I was just out of Yale. I was going to become immortal as an artist. I went to London to study.
I know.
I did well. I won a gold medal. I had a future once. What happened to it?
The telegraph is your future. It must be. You mustn't give it up.
Annie, life is so unreal just now. I've been married. I lost my wife. I have grown-up children. My oldest daughter is your age. Unreal. All of it. Unreal.
The girl says goodnight. The man is alone, restless. The long years of work gone for nothing. A dream, an ambition, dissolved into futility. Well, it's no use thinking of sleep. May as well go out. Out into the cold, hostile Washington night and just walk. It doesn't matter how far. Raining now, cold and raw. The man shivers, but doesn't care. Cobblestone streets. A few years ago, there'd been only muddy lanes. A light in one window of a house. Gone now. Only darkness. Darkness and the icy rain. Something ahead, pale, misty against the night. A little white colonial church. The soft gloom, so restful. One is able to sit there and think.
You know why I quit painting, why I gave so much time to my invention. You know what it could have meant to me.
Money. As simple as that. A lot of money. An end to all financial worry. He could have gone back to his painting. A rich man, able to paint at leisure. But now what? He hasn't a penny in the world, and he has a family of children to support.
I don't know what to do or where to turn.
He must have dozed off. He's awake now.
I feel better. Much better.
He walks home again. Bitterness gone. Resentment, despair, all gone. His mind relaxed, peaceful. Why hadn't he come to this before?
Yes?
Are you up?
Annie, good morning.
I begged Father to let me tell you.
Tell me.
Samuel, you're getting the money.
What?
The very last thing they did, the last bill they passed before adjourning last night. Samuel, they voted you the money, $30,000, right after you left there.
I must let Alfred know.
Alfred Vail, former art student at New York University where Professor Morse once taught. Vail, who had encouraged, had helped Morse finish the invention. Vail, who must now hasten to Washington.
Alfred, we must get to work.
A shallow trench to be dug from Washington to Baltimore. A converted plow to dig it. Then the laying of the wire. Testing, testing, testing. As each length of cable is buried in the trench, the signal must be tested. How far does it carry?
The signal's not getting through. There's something wrong.
Dread of failure. This man who has known little else all his life.
Ask Mr. Vail to come here. Stop work. This trench is no good to us. We can't bury the wire. It won't work.
So the telegraph wire has to be left in the open, strung up on poles. All the way from Washington to Baltimore, the wire must be carried overhead. Again, testing, testing, testing. The telegraph instrument is in a tent beside the road. Morse has become nervous these days. About a mile along the road, Alfred Vail should be receiving a test signal.
Answer! The signal's not getting through.
If he fails, the man will be a laughingstock. Every day a crisis. The certainty of failure. Night and day without rest, without mercy to himself or those about him. A problem is met, overcome. Another takes its place. Mile upon mile of wire, stretching from Washington toward Baltimore. The big day is come. A room in the Supreme Court building. Government officials, friends, Commissioner Ellsworth, his daughter, Annie. All there to see the telegraph tested over a distance of 30 miles. This is it.
Samuel.
Don't worry.
Can anything go wrong?
No, nothing can go wrong. Nothing. Gentlemen, please. Alfred Vail is in Baltimore, waiting to receive the message I'm going to send him. Having received it, he will send the same message back to this room. Your attention, please.
Morse starting to tap out the message.
At this very moment, Alfred Vale is receiving the message. In a matter of seconds now, he will send it back to us.
Well, Mr. Morse? They're waiting. Looking at you.
Patience! In heaven's name, a moment of patience!
There it is! There it is!
Gentlemen, this instrument is now recording in code the message that Alfred Vale is sending from Baltimore.
So it's working. Hasn't Morse been saying it does for 12 long years? The government official, familiar with the code, translates the message as it comes in. He seems unable to realize the enormity of the moment. Annie Ellsworth takes the slip of paper from his hand.
Here it is. The message. What hath God wrought?
What hath God wrought? A message soon to be heard around the entire world as a new era of rapid communications began. The world grew small, continents a few seconds apart. No longer was it necessary for an urgent message to take uncertain weeks by boat or stagecoach. Men built a telegraph cable across the American continent, across the Atlantic, around the globe. A magic wire that linked the world. This has been the 7th chapter in the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the veterans of foreign wars. Next week, another story to make you proud of this great country of ours as we follow the American Trail. The American Trail. The American Trail. Blazed in blood, defended in blood. Chapter 11. The New South.
The pale, dead moon of the Southlands dissolves into the dawn. Morning now. No time to dally. The people have a job to do. Ships to be built. In Norfolk, Virginia, a passenger plane loaded with businessmen taking off from Atlanta for Texas City, Kansas City, New York City. Freight cars out of Kentucky loaded with coal, cement, lumber, raw materials to be smelted down in the blast furnaces of Birmingham. An oil well coming in from 100 feet below the surface of the Gulf off New Orleans. The new, noisy, big, brawling industrial South.
knew it didn't happen yesterday. But it wasn't always like this. It was quiet and still. And a great tiredness stretched across the prostrate and eroded hills and flatlands. Quiet and still. "1866. The war between the states is ended now. 250,000 Southern boys dead from wounds and disease. The nightmare called defeat. You feel it everywhere. In the dust, in the hot, scorching wind, the people stand there, petrified, shock-stunned. A man and his wife, their house gone. They stare at all that's left them.
The land. We still got that.
The land. Look at it.
It lay there, bleeding, ravished, desolate, like the people. All hope for the future, dead.
We'll never get back, Mr. Grady.
Get back?
To where we used to be.
Get back into the past? The past belongs to the dead.
The man is Grady. Henry Grady, 25 years old, editor of a Southern newspaper. The Atlanta Constitution, young, vigorous. He stands at the window in his office. The farmer from the land is with him.
10 years since the war ended.
You've grown up in that time.
But the South is still prostrate.
Yes, almost.
Yet the land is fabulous in natural resources.
We had men to work.
We have them. Able, strong-bodied men.
Who've never done a lick of work.
It's not too late for them to learn.
I don't know about that.
Slave days are over. We've got to pull ourselves up. Do the job ourselves.
The people have found their spokesman. Grady speaks through his newspaper.
The South shall rise up from the ashes. The cities tremble with industry. The soils sparkle with abundance. The forests echo to the passing of freight trains. There will be a fascination about her triumph.
So the upward climb begins. The people go to work. But hands that have never known toil find reconstruction hard.
You must be dead.
Dead nothing.
Out there in those fields all day.
They were out there all day.
But in that hot sun.
They worked in the sun. So can I.
One thing is sure. The white man himself is finding a freedom from the old slave days. He discovers he can work. Years passing now, new voices, the freedmen, former slaves. They too have their spokesman, their symbol of the future.
The peanut, the lowly common peanut, a truly wondrous thing.
The man is Carver. Professor George Washington Carver stands there in his laboratory in Alabama, the Tuskegee Institute. The professor is accustomed to visitors. He sees them every day. The farmer is one of them.
32% oil. That's the peanut. 32% oil. I want you to taste something. Drink this.
Milk?
Taste it.
Pleasant.
Milk from the peanut.
Why, that's incredible.
You can make butter from it, cheese, coffee. The peanut is an industry in itself.
A new industry for the South. The voice of Carver is heard all through the South, wherever the Negro owns land.
Don't you plant cotton all the time. You hear me? You take good care of your land. It's no good when you grow cotton on it all the time. That ruins it. You grow corn, rye, sweet potatoes, and peanuts. And plow deep. Plow deep. You hear me? Don't forget to fertilize your land. Dead leaves from the forest. Muck from the swamp. Now, don't you forget these things.
A few listen. A few do what he tells them. And their land grows healthy. The century ending now. But in the big cities, slums, disease, poverty, evil-smelling alleyways, rickety houses. In the middle of all this, in Lexington, Kentucky, rises another voice.
Did you say so? I heard your baby was sick. Oh, the poor little mite. Let me take her. Oh, now. There. We must do something for her. We must take her to a doctor. Oh, all this dirt. No food. How can she help being sick?
Madeline McDowell Breckenridge fights for public health, food, sanitation, the right of women to vote, cries out for every type of freedom. She reflects the people, the stirring for better things. A new century dawning at last. At Spindletop, Texas, an oil boom begins. Elsewhere in the South, a man named Duke has made a fortune in tobacco and built a university. Recovery, Reconstruction, you feel it everywhere. World War I begins. More ships, more oil, more lumber, more everything. The South is headed for the ceiling, and there ain't no ceiling in sight. This is it. And then silence again. The quiet. The stillness. 1929. The whole world seems to have collapsed. Millions jobless. The worst depression in the nation's history.
Textiles. What textiles? Who's got money to buy a suit of clothes these days?
Ships. Ships? Who wants to build ships? You pick up all the ships you want with a couple of $100 bills.
Who wants to make milk out of peanuts? They're throwing real milk down the sewers.
Stunned. Shocked. Too unbelieving to act. The South staggers. Month after month, nothing happens except that everything gets a little worse. Then, as if a giant voice deeply embedded in its memory spoke across the South, from the Virginia and the Carolina coast, across the Everglades of Florida and the Red Hills of Georgia and the Delta country of the Mississippi.
The South shall rise up from the ashes. Her cities tremble with industry. Her soil sparkle with abundance. There will be a fascination about her triumph.
Again, the giant stirs and reaches in its pockets and its heart for means to carry it once more into the future. For the coal, iron, oil, gas, the pine and the paper, the cotton and the cottonseed oil, and 100 other products of the soil. And suddenly, not overnight, but soon, the South is waiting on the crest of national necessity. And then 7,000 miles away in the Pacific, Pearl Harbor. Need for all the riches that have been lying dormant in the Southland. This is the breakthrough.
Feed 'em. Feed those furnaces.
You talk too much.
Feed 'em. Feed 'em. Feed 'em. Feed those furnaces.
Foundries,
Feed 'em.
the iron foundries, the steel mills, gas and sulfur, phosphate, manganese, copper, aluminum, lead, zinc, you name it, they got it. Meanwhile, on an island called Guadalcanal, a boy from Searcy, Arkansas, reads a letter from his hometown. The letter is written on paper made from good Georgia pine. His uniform from cotton grown in Louisiana, turned out by a textile mill near Spartanburg. His buddy hails him with a phrase that started in Atlanta and now said in 100 tongues around the world.
Hey, have a Coke?
And back home in the South, something going on. Top secret. In a little town outside Knoxville, Tennessee. Oak Ridge, the Science Research Laboratory.
You ask one of the scientists. What's going on?
Call it what you will. The birth of a Frankenstein monster. The destroyer of its own master. Call it a bomb. An atom bomb. An agent of peace, bringing about the swift end of a war. Or call this atomic power the means by which men can walk into a sunlit future of cheap abundance.
The new South. The old South. The South. The chimneys by the hundreds billowing smoke on the outskirts of Knoxville, Tennessee. The giant DC-6 roaring over the edge of Stone Mountain and then dropping quietly, gently into the airport of Atlanta. The eternal beauty and dignity of the columns of Jefferson's Monticello. Ornamental iron, delicate as lace, on an old house in Charleston. An alligator swimming through a cathedral of moss in a Louisiana bayou. And a great river winding, cutting away, restoring the heartland. This is the South. A man stands there on the rich black soil. White man, Negro. He sees the new South, even now, as a South that is already passing. For the South is not merely a fragment of geography. It is the spirit of men who fell and rose again. And where men rise, there always is the future. Whatever the future may bring.
This has been the 11th chapter in the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Next week, another story to make you proud of this great country of ours as we follow the American Trail. American Trail. The American Trail. Blazed in blood. Defended in blood. Chapter 8. On to Monterey.
August 25th, 1843, Utah Territory. Red, yellow, blue cliffs rise up on all sides. Sunset, fierce, barbaric, hostile.
The man is Captain John Fremont. The government wants a route survey that will connect the United States with the Oregon country. Fremont is the man for the job. 4 months ago, he left Kansas. He is west of the Rocky Mountains now. 15 men with him. 1 howitzer gun. And a hunter named Carson.
Still working on that diary, Captain?
Yes, I'll need these notes when I get back to Washington.
I sort of keep thinking about Broken Hand Fitzpatrick.
He's all right, Carson.
Maybe we should have all stayed together.
By the time we get to the Oregon country, Broken Hand will be there waiting for us. He'll most likely get to Fort Hall before we do.
That was no coyote, Captain.
Indians? Johnson, what is it?
I ain't sure, sir.
You see something?
I just ain't sure, Captain Fremont.
I'll take a look around, Captain.
Get some sleep. Indians won't attack if they know we're on the watch for them. September 8th. 1 week south of Soda Springs. Searching for the Great Salt Lake. Something else. Something I can't even talk to Carson about. Not yet. Our final destination should be the Columbia River. The job will be done. Yet I know I must go on from there. Well, that can wait. Our party's even smaller. I've sent some men on to Fort Hall for supplies. The rest of us are in marshlands, surrounded by mountains.
Real salty around here, Captain.
Yeah, I'm breathing it. I feel it in my stomach.
Makes you kind of thirsty.
Hey, Carson, your face is covered with salt. You better wipe it off. Marshlands glisten with salt. We've ridden to higher ground. An ocean. An ocean in the middle of the desert.
All the way to the horizon. Further than you can see.
The Great Salt Lake.
Hey, them islands out there. Look at them islands.
Tropical jungle islands.
You reckon anything lives on?
Animals. Carson, tomorrow we'll take the rubber boat out. We'll explore the lake, the island.
Captain, it's a real good thing there's only 4 of us in this here boat.
Huh?
It sprung half a dozen leaks.
Carson.
Something wrong, Captain?
The island.
You see anything on it?
Carson, take these glasses. Have a look.
Captain, I don't see nothing but rock. No trees, no...
Nothing at all. Just barren rock. Nothing but rock.
Captain Fremont, we're taking water.
You sure are, Captain. Start bailing.
I expected to see so much on that island.
Can't keep bailing, or this boat's going to sink.
All right, now. Come on, we're almost in shallow water now. We'll be able to wade ashore.
Real lonely out here, Captain.
Carson, ours are most likely the first human voices to break the silence of this island in 1,000,000 years.
Don't surprise me none.
You'll have to stay here the night until we can patch the boat up.
Well, anyhow, won't have to bother none about Indians tonight.
In the morning, I can draw a map of the lake, but I can see of it from here. Then we'll push on to Fort Hall. September 15th. Oregon Trail. The men I sent on to Fort Hall have returned. Broken Hand Fitzpatrick is with them.
Captain, my boy, we couldn't bring much food. Food's a scarce commodity up at Fort Hall.
Well, how's that?
Well, it's the settlers moving into the Oregon country. They just about cleaned up all the food at the fort.
Hey, you reckon we can get enough to see us to the Columbia River, Broken Hand?
That's quite a problem, Kit.
Well, we don't all have to go to the Columbia. I think we can send some of the men home, as a matter of fact. October 28th. We're camped beside the Dalles of the Columbia River. Rock walls overlook deep, dark whirlpools. No sound, no foam, no ripples. An accurate map has been charted from Kansas to the Oregon country. Still, the dream I've had for many weeks stays with me. Of the great unknown country to the south of here.
Now, what are you thinking about, Captain?
I was thinking of somewhere in the Sierra Nevada.
Sierra Nevada?
The Buenaventura River.
Captain, you ain't got no idea.
The river's never been surveyed.
But Captain...
No one's even sure where it is.
Well, it's on maps.
Yeah, but every map is different.
Captain, we wouldn't have food enough.
Ah, buffalo, dear. We'd find food and travel light.
The winter's coming.
We'll be in the river country before then. Flows through a valley, mild climate even in winter.
I ought to have my skull examined for even listening
Travel
to you.
light, you said, Captain.
We'll leave the heavy equipment.
What about the howitzer gun, Captain?
We'll take that. December 10th. Excitement at the prospect of locating the Buenaventura. We're pushing through hill country where no white men have ever been before. The Indians seem hostile everywhere, smoke signals. We've halted.
We stand precious little chance that we're attacked.
If we could discourage them.
Well, they might be kind of hard to discourage, Captain.
They're coming. Look.
Down that hill, Captain. See him?
Unhitch the howitzer, load it. Hurry up.
Howitzer, say glory, yes.
Unhitch the mule from the gun.
I can help you.
Broken hand, load the howitzer.
Just about ready, Captain.
If this fails, get ready to fight. Fire!
It stopped them.
Captain, me boy, they're running for their lives.
Captain, this is the first time I ever took a liking to that there gun.
January 3rd. We move across Black Rock, desert land. Heavy fog and the cold.
Sure can't see more than a few yards in any direction, Captain.
Well, at least we're hidden from the Indians. January 15th. Pine Forest. We must be coming to the Buenaventura River. Carson has gone ahead looking for beaver signs. That'll tell us we're close to a river flowing seawards. All the men are looking forward to seeing the river. It'll be a moment of triumph for all of us. January 16th. The river must be at hand. Not in one ravine or valley, then in the next. We're close by. January 17th. The river's somewhere in this country. We've tried all directions. In the next ravine, perhaps, or the next. January 18th. Where is it? No sign of the river. No sign of beaver tracks to indicate where it could be. Where is it? There is no Buenaventura. Another legend like the Jungle Islands and the Salt Lake. Oh, these fools.
We might have missed the river.
No, it doesn't exist.
I reckon we came a long way for nothing.
I wouldn't say that. We found there's no such river. Now we know.
What now?
Now,
we're low on food.
We can't go back. We've come too far.
Well, Captain, California's just on the other side of these mountains.
It's late in the year, but we can try. If we can find a pass.
We must find a pass, Captain.
All right, we turn off. We'll try to cross the Sierras. We have no choice. Mountains, 9 to 15,000 feet high. I keep a record of the days. We've shot a few birds, but today we see no sign of any. Silence. The moaning silence of the Sierra Nevada. Snow, 100 feet deep in places. The gun has been left behind. We go on. Hunger and frozen bodies. Starvation is very near.
Now, what?
One of the men. Stay here.
Captain Fremont. Snow so soft. Comfortable. Let me sleep. Let me sleep.
Later now, later.
No. I'm hungry, Captain. If I can just sleep, I won't care so much. Give me food. Give me food. I want food.
We better strap him to his saddle, Captain.
All right. Help me.
Let me stay.
We've eaten most of our clothing. Leather jackets, footgear. Half naked now, living skeletons, frozen. And we stare at each other looking for signs of madness. We stumble or stand still. How much can men stand, dear God? How much more?
Captain. Captain. You see something, Captain? I thought I saw something.
Carson, there is something. Some huts. People!
There in the Sierra wilderness, a tiny village, friendly Indians, employed by a white man named Sutter. On March 6th, Fremont made his way into Sutter's fort in the Sacramento Valley. For the first time, an accurate survey had been made of the country from Kansas to Oregon, from the Columbia down through the Sierras into California, as America entered yet another era of expansion. New states grew up in the great mountain regions as the covered wagons rolled westward, ever westward, on to Monterey. This has been the 8th chapter in the story of the American nation, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Next week, another story to make you proud of this great country of ours as we follow the American Trail. American Trail. The American Trail. Blazed in blood. Defended in blood. Chapter 13, The Brave Flag.
There it is. The flag. A familiar sight, a familiar thing. You see it everywhere. But most often you see it in your mind's eye. There it is, stretching tautly in the wind on that ship bearing past the Statue of Liberty. There it is, hanging limply from the flagpole of an army post in Kansas, heat-worn, almost in dead center of the great continent. There it is in that picture, 4 Marines and a stick of wood and a piece of cloth and a splash of color at an insignificant place called Iwo Jima. There it is in your heart, that feeling that it's always been flying, always will be flying, someplace, somewhere. The flag. The American flag. Has it? Will it? That history book over there. Pick it up, boy.
This one?
Sure, almost anyone would do. Now start near the beginning. That's it. Just a couple of pages farther back. See it?
This one with the funny ships?
Yes. It's one of those old engravings of the port of New York. But look at those flags, all those flags. Not one American flag. Do you notice that, son? Not an American flag in the place. No, it wasn't always there. It had to be put there.
in June 1776 in New York.
And when we meet in Philadelphia, gentlemen, we hope we can devise an instrument for the good of ourselves and all these...
What are you going to do, Moses?
Going to get out.
But Jefferson's right. We can have independence from England. We can have our own country here.
I'm not taking any chances. You'd better not. You see that man up there? 5 pounds to your 1. Next time we see him, he'll be hanging from a piece of the best British hemp. Won't have much to say then, will he?
That's the way it was. Some did, some didn't, but enough did. Now, that man they were talking about, he didn't hang after all, but he did almost die of cold and hunger at Valley Forge, and he saw his men die in pain at Trenton and Monmouth and Yorktown. Don't let those old pictures fool you. A bullet in the head hurt just as much then as it does now, and a lot of the men who died didn't even have a decent pair of shoes to die in. And that man they were talking about...
I, George Washington, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute...
Piece of cotton, splash of color, stick of wood. It could have been ripped down before it even got up there. It could have died of borning. The American Republic was a babe in arms. The British Empire was the greatest naval and military power in the world. In 1812...
Hey, two, we're boarding to take off English subjects. Stand off! Stand off, or we fire!
The War of 1812, just a few pages in the history book. But when it was over, the American flag could fly in freedom over the 7 seas. Yes, the flag could have died of warning. It could have been buried on plains or mountainsides or desert as the pioneers moved westward. Because the land didn't give an inch either, son. The flag could have been ripped apart in 1860. Just keep on flipping through the book. War between the states. The picture, a pup tent, a general, a president, a photographer, the American flag. The president stands on a battlefield. Gettysburg.
That this nation, undergone, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people...
Yes, he died soon after that. Of course, they buried a big flag with him.
From the earth.
Look, the pictures are getting better now. See that old coal-burning cruiser? You can practically hear Admiral Dewey snarling for full speed, bellows busting, fire all guns, and the flag, and this picture, right up into modern times now. World War I. There was marching and cheering in the streets, and the spindly boys lined up for the draft and in front of the recruiting offices, and it was a wonderful time to be alive. And the troop ships were packed to the gunwales with excited youth wanting to get over there and help make this world safe for democracy. But little flags flew over little plots of ground where other flags are buried in the hearts of the countrymen. In France and Belgium and the cold floor of the North Atlantic. You can throw the history book away now, son.
Oh, but that isn't all. My father and my Uncle George were in the...
Sure, I know. The Second World War. Sure, that's happened. But the history's just being written now.
Oh.
The pictures will be better, of course. Excellent film, magnificent shots from all angles, theirs and ours. That's the thing about pictures. This one. There's Hitler, and there's the German war machine, and there's the back of Europe already half broken.
They're not our planes! They're gas!
And that's another picture even closer up. Pearl Harbor. A despot in the west, another despot in the east, and suddenly the great American continent seeming vulnerable, at bay. And now the pictures crowd one on top of another. A prime minister speaks, Winston Churchill.
Not only the British Empire now, but the United States are fighting for life. Behind these great combatant communities are ranged all the spirit and hopes of all the conquered countries in Europe.
Yes, that was a nice picture. We weren't alone. Suddenly, there were many nations fighting one fight, the one good fight, the toughest fight we ever had.
My ensign's out. Ensign's out. I've had it. Over.
The beautiful blue Pacific waited below. And in another ocean, in another climate...
I can't hang on any longer.
Me neither. I swear that last plane saw us. Guess they didn't know.
No, I guess they didn't.
But did you notice one thing in those pictures? You hardly ever saw an American boy fighting alone. Lots of other boys, lots of other uniforms, lots of other flags. And today they're still fighting together, fighting to preserve peace. Sure, the flag is up there, partly because we're big and strong, but there's another, bigger reason. Before you put a flag on a stick or even on a piece of cloth, it's got to be flying in the hearts of the countrymen. What of the flag? What of the hearts of the countrymen? Sibley, Iowa, population 2,559. Mrs. McMurrow's kitchen in the big green house 3 blocks from the post office.
No, we never had any boys in the service. Girls neither. Never had any children of any kind. It just beats me, that ladle up there. Darned ladder's busted again.
Here you are.
Thanks. Yes, sir. Guess you came to the wrong place.
Well, I saw that big American flag outside the house, so
we got that big flag out there, and lots of people think it's because we had boys in the service, but it ain't so.
Well, thanks very much anyway, Mrs. McMurrow. I guess I'll be running along.
Stay to lunch if you like.
Smells wonderful, but no thanks. Would you mind telling me one thing, though? If you and Mr. McMurrow haven't any children, why the deuce are you cooking about 5 gallons of beef stew for lunch?
Won't be none of it left tomorrow, I'll tell you that. You see, Bob and me adopted 4 European children right at the end of the war. Started with one, and one led to another. All kinds of ways to keep democracy alive, son. Don't forget that. That's why the flag's flying out front.
Grindstone, Maine, population 60, temperature 17 degrees below zero.
What of the flag? What of the hearts of the countrymen? Well, now, ain't we fancy? A fellow like you comes down from the city, can't hardly tell what he's talking about. Get out the vote, boy. Go to town council, if you got such things up there, and speak your mind. If you see a good bill coming, why, vote for it. See a bad one, vote against it. But don't just stand there. Go run for office or something. Step aside now, boy. If people work for the flag will take care of itself. Get up there now, get up.
I'll try if you want me to, but I think all that anesthetic that they gave me hasn't worn off.
That's all right, son.
Well, to me, it's like that thing there in the New York Harbor.
You mean the inscription on the Statue of Liberty that says, "Give me your tired, your poor"?
Yeah, that's it. You see, that means something personal to me. My grandfather came from Poland, and he memorized that. It was the first thing he learned when he learned to speak English. I guess the flag means something different to everybody. To me, it means that. Once this country stepped down and said, "Come on in, join us, for better or worse." Being a soldier in Korea means it's... For the worse right now, that's only part of the deal. But it's not the only part of the deal. Unquote. Don't forget to spell my name right. Hey, what's the rest of that?
Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Sleep tight, soldier. Well, that's about it.
Yeah, that's it. Quite a lot, huh?
Yes, quite a lot. And I suppose the next thing you say is, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Nobody knows exactly where anybody's going from here. But we do know what happens to America now is up to us, all of us. Listen to these words from the President of the United States.
The job of being an American is an unfinished job. In terms of what we plan and hope for and can achieve, America will always be an unfinished job. Most of all, it is the job of America's youth. More than any others, the young people of our country have the right to ask, where are we going? Because wherever we go, they will be there. Now, it has been my good fortune to spend all my life with young people. I think I sense of what is on their minds in these troubled days. They hope, of course, to build a stronger, better America as the cornerstone of a free world. A strong America, an America growing in spiritual and material strength, is a bulwark against war. But more than that, only a strong and free America, actively cooperating with the free world, can give substance to the hope of lasting peace. Our crusade sees for tomorrow an America filled with opportunity that passes far beyond the little limits of today. America's role will be a decisive role. My message to you, my message to the youth of our country, is that America is not through. America is unfinished business, the most important unfinished business in the whole world.
President Eisenhower said that.
Yes. Well, that's it. But here before you go, son, you're going to need plenty of help. Better take these with you. Declaration of Independence, Bunker Hill, Bill of Rights, the Emancipation Proclamation, Gettysburg, the Constitution, the Enterprise, Belleau Wood, Anzio, Normandy, Guadalcanal, Boulder Dam, the Mississippi, the bony shores of Maine, the deep Gulf, the blue Pacific, forest and lake and flatland, and a stick of wood, a piece of cloth, a splash of color. Good luck, son.
This is the final chapter of The American Trail, brought to you by the Ladies' Auxiliary to the Veterans of Foreign Wars.